Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 259. And can you feel it? Can you feel the power of E3 2021? It is right around the corner. Show is kicking off on Saturday, and we are here right now on Tuesday to get you excited, get you prepped for E3 2021. This entire episode is a preview of what's coming at E3, and it's not easy this year, Matt.
No.
First of all, the schedule for E3, some of it was just finalized this morning. Not only this morning, like after I had already finished the graphics for the show and it was too late to update them, I needed to get to the studio. What do you think is going on? Why has it been so hard for them to schedule this stuff out in an adequate amount of time?
I think everybody just is facing a lot of lag on, the impact of COVID on projects, and nobody knows what's going to be ready in time, or people are scrambling to get things ready in time. And, they went to the last possible second to commit to be sure that they could even commit, I think is what's happening mostly there. It's this year, we've seen it already. This year has been a long series of delays and pushes and, this is actually coming out 6 months later than we thought, kind of thing. I think it's just all, it's a chain reaction from last year. As we saw, like the stuff that was pretty far along already and just needed mostly polish did manage to come out more or less on time. With some exceptions, some things came out anyway, looking at you, Cyberpunk. But I think now you're looking at stuff that was sort of in the middle of development early last year. Those are the things that are being impacted at this point.
Yeah, what do you think about the usual number of surprises that we get at E3? The stuff that gets a trailer or some kind of CG piece to just kind of say, hey, it's here, but maybe isn't coming for a long time. Do you think we'll get as much of that as we typically do at E3?
I don't know. I'm torn on maybe not, because they're trying to finish what they've already started working on. But at the same time, that would be really easy to do. So it'd be pretty easy to throw together a CG trailer and say, it's coming later, please be excited, kind of thing.
Yeah. Because you farm that stuff out to other studios anyway, typically.
So that could be a route they go to sort of appease people who would be otherwise disappointed that there's not a lot of new content or not a lot of stuff that's ready to come out this year beyond what we already know about. Yeah. One exception to that probably be Nintendo, because we don't know anything. So whatever they show will be new, presumably, except maybe those Skyward Sword HD thing. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know what Microsoft would have new, really. Although there's the rumors that they've got another developer they just bought that they're going to announce. But I don't know. Mostly, I think this is going to be a year of finally seeing some details on things we've known about a long time.
I hope so. In the rundown, there's a lot of games that were shown a long time ago that we haven't really got any significant updates on in a really long time, and this might be kind of the perfect spot for a lot of that stuff to happen. But anyway, welcome to GameFace. This is the flagship show of Sifted Games at sifted.net. We're here every Tuesday on Twitch at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/Sifted Games. Sifted is supported 100% by our Patreon and other contributions from our fans. If you'd like to help us out, if you're listening to the show on any of the podcast services out there, and you'd like to contribute, particularly this month with E3, our costs go up a lot. We bust our asses for the next 2.5 weeks straight. I've been trying to stock up on sleep, Matt. I don't really think that works. So
no, that's not how that works.
Thing. But anyway, we do bust our asses during E3. And if you'd like to help us out, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. If you also would just like to maybe drop us a one-time payment, you can go to sifted.net/donate if you want to tip us for our E3 coverage. Our E3 hub will be going up really soon on the site, probably tomorrow afternoon. If you have not been along for the ride with Sifted at E3, there is no other website, no other place better to consume E3 content than sifted.net. You can go to our E3 hub and you can sort literally hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content from all around the internet, from all the websites, the streamers, YouTube channels. You can sift it by 60-plus categories to find exactly what you're looking for. If you just want to see what happened with JRPGs at E3, you can do that. If you just want to see Japanese games in general at E3, you can do that. First-person shooters, any genre, any platform, that's what Sifted is all about. So there will be a link to the E3 Hub in the header of the site, probably midday tomorrow. There's also a new addition to the header today. We have a big sale going on from our latest shirts. They are all 40% off all through E3. The price change is live right now. So if you've been waiting, and if you're a sifter who's been around for a long time, you know we sell the shirts full price for quite a while, and then we'll start doing sort of flash sales. This is the first flash sale for our brand new designs. Both designs on sale for $15 a piece. So if you've been waiting, now is the time to jump, and we would appreciate it a lot. Just another way to help us, and you can find our shirts at sifted.net/store. So let's kick things off here. We have a lot to get to. In fact, the TriCaster is just loaded. I think there are like 85 clips that we're going to go through today for this show. It is insane. This is the first time I've done something like this as a TriCaster TD while I'm hosting the show. So give me a little slack today. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to do my best. We've kind of worked out a formula, though, where I introduce something, then I toss it to Matt, and then while Matt's talking, I can fire off the clip. So it's kind of worked out pretty well since I've been doing this, and I enjoy it. It's kind of like DJing. It's like a crazy multitasking thing that you do with a piece of electronics, and I actually kind of have fun doing it. So we're going to start things off by talking about what we're doing at E3, because as I said when we started the show, it's confusing this year, trying to understand what's going on, what's important, what's not, when everything is happening. That's why we're here today, to outline to you guys what we're going to do at E3. But then also, once we're done with that, we're going to go publisher by publisher, in some cases platform by platform, and kind of preview all the big stuff that they're going to show. We're going to try to guess maybe some stuff that people don't know about that they might show. And then at the very end, Matt and I will deliver our E3 2021 predictions. So we have a great show today. You're going to leave this stream knowing what's up with E3. And the first thing we're going to show you is what we're doing at E3. So everything kicks off on Saturday, this Saturday, in just like 4 days or whatever it is. There's only one big event on Saturday that we're actually going to cover, and that is the Ubisoft press conference. Our stream will start at 11:45 a.m. Pacific, 2:45 p.m. Eastern, and we'll do a 15-minute pre-show, just kind of setting everything up for you guys, letting you know what to expect, getting you hype, and then the actual Ubisoft press conference starts at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Matt and I will be sitting in on the press conference doing live commentary of the press conference. And what I'm telling you right now is true for every single one of these that we're doing. So we'll sit in, do live commentary during the press conference, and then we'll do post-show analysis right after that. Depending on the publisher, that lasts 15 to 30 minutes usually. So count on 15 minutes off the top to get ready, the actual press conference, and then 15 to 30 minutes of analysis for each press conference afterwards. So everything starts on Saturday. On Sunday, things start to pick up a little bit, Sunday, June 13th. The first thing that day is the Microsoft/Bethesda press conference. Matt, how do you feel about them kind of tacking Bethesda onto that?
I mean,
Is this a one-year thing to kind of pound the point home that they just signed the big deal?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, if I paid $4 billion for something, I'd probably want to brag about it.
I agree. I definitely agree with that.
Also, let's not forget that the amount of copies that Bethesda stuff sells, like you probably do want that on your marquee.
Yep.
You know, just so people know where to find the thing they care about.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it totally. But I do think for next year's, it will just be called the Microsoft Press.
Yeah, I think eventually they'll once it's established that that's where Bethesda is now. I would say once they release Starfield, once it's established in the marketplace that the big Bethesda games are exclusive to the Xbox environment, then they will stop doing that.
Yeah, once Bethesda is assimilated into the board, I think.
So hopefully you're right next year, because maybe we get Starfield before next E3.
Yep, I think that's probably a pretty safe bet. At least I hope so. So the Microsoft, everything actually kicks off on Sunday, June 13th at 9:45 a.m. Pacific. That's when our stream will start. That's 12:45 p.m. Eastern. And then the actual press conference begins at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And again, we'll be doing live commentary during the press event and then doing analysis afterwards. And then there's a little break, and we'll probably take the stream down for like 30 or 40 minutes so Matt and I can maybe get something to eat and something to drink. And then Square Enix happens. And that stream starts at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And then, oddly enough, the press conference starts at 12:15, noon 15 p.m. Pacific, and then 3:15 p.m. Eastern. So Sunday is it'll probably feel like the first real day of E3, I think, for a lot of people. And I think for me, too. I like it starting this way, Matt. We can kind of ease into things on Saturday. If we have any production issues or anything, we can iron them all out before the big stuff really starts hitting the next day.
Yeah, I kind of go the other way. I mean, yes, it's good to have production issue problem-solving time.
That buffer time, yeah.
But I actually like having a lot of press conferences in one day to sit and and probably because it takes a lot of time to get to and from the studio. But it's I like the thing where you sit down in the morning and you're like, we got 4 of these to go through today. It's a whole day.
It's
the whole
more
day
exciting that way.
Kind of blocked in.
Yeah, I agree with that. For sure.
I mean, and I get they don't want to do that too much because nobody can sit around on a Monday and watch live streams all day like that because people got to work and do life things. But I like the kind of the old model where we were sort of stuck in that room all day. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to do it every week or anything.
Yeah, but it gets you in the groove.
Yeah, it made it feel like an event.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely stretched and dragged out this year without a doubt. One other thing I should note before we go forward. Everything we're doing will be archived for our patrons at patreon.com/sifted, for our sifters on the site at sifted.net. All this stuff will be archived as quickly as possible. I can't make any promises. Usually what we do is we put up the analysis first of each press conference, and then we'll put up the live commentary over each press conference after that. And those are longer files, and they take a little longer to render and to upload and compress and all that kind of stuff. So just so you know what's going on. Okay, let's move to the next page. Monday, June 14th, another pretty big day. Well, actually, it started as a pretty big day, but we just learned this morning that it's not now. Things kick off and it's a little later on Monday, at 2:15 p.m. Pacific. For the Capcom presser, that's when our stream starts. That's 5:15 p.m. Eastern. And then the actual Capcom press conference starts at 2:30 p.m. Pacific, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And again, we'll be doing the same process that we do with every other one, pre-show, live commentary, post-show analysis. And then we were going to tackle the Take-Two presser because seemingly Take-Two could have some big stuff to show. However, it was just announced this morning that it's actually not doing a press conference. It is doing a roundtable Q&A, which I don't know why you would bother doing that, particularly when you have a pretty impressive lineup, or you would think anyway, to show off in a legitimate press conference. That is not going to be the case, though. So we are scratching Take-Two off of the schedule. So on Monday, for us, there's just the Capcom press conference. Again, 2:15 Pacific, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. And then on Tuesday, and this sucks, Nintendo, living on Japanese time, the Nintendo press conference, which could be one of the biggest of all of E3, it starts on Tuesday, June 13th. We're starting at 8:45 a.m. Pacific, or 11:45 a.m. Eastern. And then
gross.
It is gross. Matt and I will be here real early and looking real groggy. And then the actual press conference starts at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And then on to the final day, which actually there's a big gap in between this and the final day. On Friday, June 18th, at our usual time of 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, Matt and I will be delivering our Best of E3 2021 awards. Typically, I think we give out awards in close to 20 categories, roughly. They go up or down each year depending on basically the games that are shown. So sometimes genres like sports may not make an appearance unless there's something worth discussing. Action adventure sometimes barely makes it into the show. And then we have some fun awards like most disappointing and, games that our most anticipated game that we saw at E3, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that is our coverage of E3 2021. And then obviously the next week's GameFace, it will be all the overflow of all that kind of stuff. Matt, how do you feel about the schedule?
It's a lot of driving back and forth.
Yeah,
but
the good news is it's really early in a lot of cases. Hopefully the traffic isn't too bad.
Yeah, usually it's the going back after 4 p.m. that's the problem because of the commute. Or morning commute for those who don't live here, morning commute in LA is not usually as bad as afternoon. Because afternoon is more spread out because everybody leaves at different times, so you just get constant traffic snarls for 4 hours.
Especially in the summer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people like have summer hours in California where like they get off on Fridays or they get off on Mondays, and so
yeah, people leave at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon.
yeah.
And
So starting at like
it's
2
just
p.m.
awful.
from then on, it sucks pretty much.
Especially on like, because like you got to take Olympic or the freeway pretty much to get back and forth from where I am to where you are, and like there's no good east-west travel solution in Los Angeles. Like there's lots of north-south freeways and stuff, and like there's some east-west stuff up in the valley. In the main city, like you have to take surface streets or one specific freeway, and like it sucks.
And then everyone knows that if it's bad, they take surface streets. So you go to like one of the surface streets, and they're all clogged up too.
Waze ruined that. Like back in the days before like Waze and Google Maps and stuff, you could have like back routes you could like cheat with. Everyone can do that now because the computer just tells them to go that way.
Their app tells them to do it. Yeah.
So it's an issue. That's why everybody wants that train line get finished by the time we're like 60, and it won't matter to us anymore. It's that's the other reason I like everything kind of condensed into a couple of days. Or I mean, usually it's like we do 2 days of press conference stuff and then we go to the convention center. It's another weird year, really.
It is.
Also, Kevin Rafa does bring up a good point. When will we talk about Ratchet and Clank?
Oh yeah,
that comes out on Thursday.
That's a good question, actually. My guess is probably the following Tuesday. I'm sorry. Like, we may get something up on the site separately about it, but as far as talking about it on GameFace, it will probably be the following Tuesday. So a couple days after it's out, unfortunately. Yeah.
Although, actually, I mean, do you need to know what we think? Like, it's like,
well, that's why they watch the show. They care what we think about it.
With this game, it's like I think John Drake on Twitter put it the best, where he's like, really, like, just absurdly high levels of perfection and expectation shattering is like table stakes for Insomniac at this point. Like, it's just, what else do you think is going to happen here? Like, it's you just look at it and you're like, that's an extraordinary product they're about to put out.
Yeah, I will try to get some sort of coverage up for the game by Friday. But I'm also, there's all this pre-E3 stuff that we're doing. We're working on a top 10 most anticipated games of E3 2021, and that's in the works right now. Vincent is working on his entirely too many E3 2021 predictions article. That takes a lot of editing and back and forth. So I'm going to do the best I can. I'm just one dude. So we do have pre-E3 stuff we have to get through, and then I'll try to get through Ratchet. I'm going to be playing Ratchet like at night, typically during this week, leading up to E3. I know everyone's excited about it, and I wish we could deliver. I wish they had not released. I hate to say it. I wish they had not released it during E3. It would have been nice.
Yeah, Sony likes to do that. They like to drop stuff this period of June.
And speaking of which, you may have noticed there's a couple things missing from the schedule. You're probably like, "Where's PlayStation?" Well, as of right now, there is nothing scheduled for PlayStation for E3 at all. We'll talk about that a little bit as we get deeper into the show, but that's why it's not in our rundown right now. But rest assured, if it is announced that Sony is doing a state of play for E3, we will scramble and we will cover it for sure. But as of right now, there's nothing. You're probably also wondering, where's EA? Initial schedules for E3 had said that EA was going to do something on Thursday, and now they're saying it's not happening until July 22nd. So like a month and a half later. There is a Battlefield 6 event on Friday, but that's not really worth Matt and I coming all the way in here just to cover one game. That game has also been leaked out the wazoo. Most people already know most of the stuff about it. So
yeah, there's not much left to, I mean, it's really just to see it now.
Yeah. And there's even been trailers. They're blurry, like dude hiding cell phone camera, like shooting off screen stuff. There's been tons of that so far, but nothing official, and that'll probably be what the big reveal is.
Yeah, EA's got to have a talk with their trailer house.
Yeah, because somehow that stuff got leaked out of there, and it looks awful, too. Like, the quality of the videos is so bad. Like, at that point, if I see that stuff, I just put it out. And I'm like, okay, we'll put out our really polished trailer now. Let's work on, like, a gameplay edit for Friday, where we'll show more in-game stuff, because you can cut those together pretty quickly. But anyway, that's not what's happening. You're going to get your first look at that trailer on Friday, but otherwise, EA completely MIA from E3 2021. Before we get into the publisher-by-publisher stuff, I want to thank people who subscribe with Twitch Prime. There's been a lot. Wampler13, thank you. Commander Fett, thank you. Andy T. Monahan, thank you. Texture Glitch, thank you. Again, this is the early part of the month, so a lot of people need to resubscribe. McWomble, thank you. Hope you're doing well, man. Oh, you have also gifted a sub to someone. Thank you. That's awesome, man. Actually, you gifted a few. Look, it's like Christmas on E3 from Mick Womble. That's great, man. Lesteved, thank you. Is that from Interview with a Vampire, by the way? I'm guessing that's where you got that name from.
It's Lestat.
Oh, that's Lestat. You're right. I got that mixed up. Close, though. And I think that's it for the early part of the show. All right. So you know what we're doing. Let's talk about what we're going to be covering. Let's discuss, to kick things off, Xbox at E3 2021. We do have predictions at the end of the show, so we do have to dance around some stuff here and there when we talk about some of these publishers because we want to hold it till the end. I have a big prediction for Xbox that I'm not going to divulge in this section that I'll hold until the prediction section at the end. Actually, I have a couple, and Matt has one as well. But let's talk about the games, Matt, because I think that is really Xbox strength at E3 2021. We went from getting the same 3 exclusives every 2 years to almost too many games to even keep track of at this point for E3 2021. The first up, obviously, the game coming out this year that Microsoft needs to do really well, Halo Infinite. Matt, what are you expecting from Halo Infinite at E3?
I mean, my thought would be that this is going to be the big blowout for the presentation. The rumors say it's coming in September. And that there will be a kind of early access for all multiplayer, maybe launched during the presentation. Basically, I expect them to pull all the stops out on this one because they have to.
They have to, yeah. They have no choice. They need to make sure that it's a success because that's what's going to engender the second wave of Series X sales when they finally catch up to demand.
Also, if the September release date is accurate, that makes me think they've got something else big between September and the end of the year.
That should, I mean, you would think so, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would hope so, but that doesn't always mean it happens. But if they're putting Halo out in September, to me, that means they've got something in October, November.
I would not be surprised if multiplayer is the big focus in their presentation. They've already shown a chunk of the campaign, although, granted, people weren't that happy with it. So
the campaign is sort of the big relaunch here. Like, because the campaign showing last year was the thing that made everybody lose their mind about how bad it looked. So the campaign representation is sort of for all the marbles. Multiplayer seems like it would be an easier sell. So I think you're probably right. They are going to. And also I think, you'll be playing that first. So I think you're right. They will soft pedal a little bit by focusing on multiplayer, which no one really has a lot of doubts about, I would think.
Yeah. My guess is a nice polished trailer for the campaign and then really nail down a multiplayer because multiplayer is also what gives the franchise legs. Look, most Halo campaigns, 10 hours, 15 hours, you're done. It's over. And then what's left is the multiplayer, which ultimately will convince people to buy it, although with Game Pass, does that even matter anymore, I guess is really the big question. But my guess is they blow out multiplayer big time, and I would not be surprised at all if there's some kind of a beta or alpha that launches either right then or launches in the next few days to let people try out Halo multiplayer. There's already been a private alpha and beta test going on behind the scenes for this game for quite a while. And so I would not be surprised if they crack it open to everyone or, Matt, at the very least, all Game Pass subscribers to try to convince people to sign up for Game Pass.
Subscription gets you into the beta right now. That would be a good one.
And then maybe like a week later it cracks open for everybody else. But that's what I'm guessing happens with Halo Infinite. But, we're not clairvoyant. We're guessing here. Well, they're educated guesses based upon our time in the industry and knowing Microsoft and knowing the franchise. But none of this is set in stone, but I think both of those are probably pretty safe bets for Halo. I think if they do focus on the multiplayer and only show a trailer for the campaign, people might be a little pissed after what happened with the last chunk of gameplay.
No, they got to deliver, and they got to deliver in a tangible way here. And I think we probably would get a bigger campaign deep dive in a separate presentation, like later in the summer.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah.
So to sort of, the final redemption sort of thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I think they will focus on multiplayer here.
Yep, I'd agree with that as well. Let's see. Next up, Hellblade 2. from Ninja Theory, the first Hellblade. What did they call it? A AAA indie at the time? That's what Ninja Theory was trying to call it. And I think that ended up being pretty accurate because
they pulled it off. They did it.
Yeah, because it was an independent game, and if you played it, you would not say that's an indie game. It did not
cost as much as it looked like it cost.
Yeah, exactly. So. But I have a feeling that this time they're going to drop the indie part. They're just going to try.
Yeah, I don't think that applies anymore. I expect this to be a much bigger production and a bigger game. Which is, a question mark, because one of the appeals of the first game, I think, was the sort of folded in intimate nature of it.
Yep,
like
I'd agree.
The production value was sky high, but it was a very focused, very single character internal journey.
Yeah.
And expanding
literally
that out to be and expanding that out to be a bigger, more like world encompassing thing, which sort of that trailer we've seen feels like it implies. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're doing, but it implies like we're scaling stuff up. And Ninja Theory is a bunch of really smart people. If they are doing that, I believe they have a good reason to. But it's also sort of messing with success to some degree. So I'm curious to see what their angle is on this thing.
I feel like we should have seen more of this game by now.
I would think so, but
I'm surprised we haven't got a second trailer for this game.
In a normal year, I think we would have.
Yeah. It's really been kind of flying under the radar, and they haven't really talked about it or promoted it for a long time. Do you think we'll see gameplay of this?
I think so.
Okay. I would not be surprised if we get another trailer that's a gameplay trailer. But we'll see. Like you said, there's that window at the end of the year. It'll be interesting to see kind of what ends up getting slotted into that window. You can't just go if Halo does indeed launch in September, you can't just go the last 4 months of the year without an exclusive. And if you remember, Microsoft is on the record saying that it is their goal to release an exclusive for Xbox Series every 3 to 4 months. So, and as you'll see as we start going through this list of games, that's very feasible for Microsoft to pull off. There are a lot of announced games already, and I'm sure we're going to get some surprises as well. So, things are
and this feels
really
like
looking
it's
up.
Positioned about right, and they were one of their earliest acquisitions in the big new wave. So it feels like it's about time.
Yep. Next up, Avowed. Avowed. Do you think Avowed will come out before the Elder Scrolls 6, Matt?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, but I think it's a couple of years away.
Okay, so this is basically Obsidian's take on the Elder Scrolls. As you know,
this is Elder Scrolls set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, basically.
Essentially, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. If that probably will be on the box when it finally ships. What do you think we'll get to see from this? If you think it's 2 years out, do you think we'll see anything?
I don't think we'll see anything from this.
Not even a trailer?
No. I don't think they're ready.
Okay.
I don't think we'll see anything from this yet. I'd like to. I'm certainly looking forward to it.
So you think this will be one of those games when the show's over, everyone's like, "What happened to Avowed?"
Like, where's Avowed? Where's Poochie? It's like I think Avowed is far enough out that they don't really need to highlight it right now.
Okay.
They might. I mean, if they're, because otherwise, I don't know what you show from Obsidian. So if they want to do sort of a look at all our soldiers kind of thing with all their new acquisitions, maybe they will show something quick from it just to like reaffirm that, like, yes, we have Obsidian in the house. There's also the rumors that Obsidian might be working on a Fallout now that Bethesda's incorporated into the body. But we'll see. Like, that would be like literally a logo or something.
Yeah.
That's years and years away. But like, I mean, maybe I'd like to see more Avowed, but I just don't think it's a priority right now.
Okay. Next up, a game I think both of us will agree we're probably not going to see at all, and that is the Elder Scrolls 6.
No. Elder Scrolls 6 is an end of generation game. I think
pipe
we'll
dream.
see that. Pretty much. Like, I think Elder Scrolls 6 will probably also, Elder Scrolls 6, they'll be touting the features it has on the next Xbox. I think it's years and years away.
So Starfield, then Elder Scrolls 6, and they're going to let Starfield cook for a while before they.
Yeah, and they're going to support Starfield for a while. There's probably going to be several DLC things, and you're not looking at full scale, full steam ahead, all hands on deck production on Elder Scrolls 6 until 2023.
I think a lot of people will be disappointed to hear that it's not already in full scale production, but you're right, it's not.
No, Elder Scrolls 6 is forever away.
It's all hands on deck for Starfield. They're just trying to get it finished.
Don't even try not to even think about it. This is the way I go about it. It's like Elder Scrolls 6 is so far out, you might as well not even bother. Like we're gonna be almost 50 by the time we play that game.
Yeah. Do you think that it was a mistake to release that teaser trailer?
I mean, I have always gotten the impression that they announced and teased Starfield and Elder Scrolls in that presentation because they felt they had no choice. I have always felt that, especially in the wake of Fallout 76's release, that they knew what Fallout 76 was going to end up being and the reaction to it, and they felt that they had to put out those two announcements of these really, really early, not going to be done for years projects that they knew people would be more positive about to give them something to look forward to.
How much do you think Fallout 76 set everything back? Like, I mean, obviously we know already it was a huge mistake because the game it's done okay now that it's gone to Game Pass. It seems to be finding an audience there.
Yeah, they've whipped it into a decent shape.
But was it worth it?
I would not think so.
Especially if it cost games like Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield from not coming out earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think the plan there was to put out a persistent multiplayer game that could kind of roll in the microtransactions for the years it was going to take them to get Starfield and Elder Scrolls done. Sort of just a constant stream of revenue to sort of keep the ship afloat. And that just did not pan out. I think they were hoping for it to be sort of the Elder Scrolls Blades of the consoles and PC for them. And that obviously did not happen.
Yeah.
And that might have been a factor in why they decided to sell to Microsoft.
Well, I'll say this. If that game convinced them to trash their old engine and build a new one, it was worth it.
Yeah.
That game does look terrible.
Yeah, I mean, we're still getting Starfield on the old engine, but Elder Scrolls 6 is supposedly using something new, so we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. Next up, a game people may have forgotten about.
I certainly did.
Bright Memory Infinite from Playism. This game...
What is this?
So it's like that first...
I read this title in the rundown. I'm like, what is that?
It's that first person. It's not just a shooter.
Oh, that first thing they showed in the reveal of the Series X presentation.
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone. I think a lot of people forgot about it because everything else has been promoted since, and it's just kind of disappeared.
I think at the time I was under the impression that was probably gonna be like a launch title.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
when you show it first,
yeah. It felt like the Godfall of the Series X. You know, like,
I mean,
look, you could only do this on this system. Who cares? Okay,
that's actually a really good comparison. It doesn't look great, but it is another feather in the cap for Xbox Series. It will be exclusive, a console exclusive anyway. But maybe there is a reason it's disappeared. Maybe it's having development problems. We haven't heard anything from it for a while, but I suspect.
Yeah. Ironically, not a bright memory for me.
Yeah, you hardly even remembered it at all. So
no, hardly Infinite.
Yeah.
No.
Next,
it doesn't help that it's named after a Square Enix game from the 360 era. Like it's just like what? It's just three words.
It definitely sounds like a Japanese game.
Yeah.
Particularly a Japanese Gen 9 game because they all have seemed to have goofy titles like that.
It's got big Infinite Undiscovery energy in the title.
Undiscovery. I love that. It's like transfarring. They always come up with like goofy terminology that they want people to adopt that never do. Let's see. Next up, State of Decay 3. All we've got so far is essentially a CG trailer of this. State of Decay 2 also has seemed to find another audience on Game Pass. It's doing pretty well on the service. They also have been very dedicated at updating the game and improving it from launch, which was pretty important considering the state that it was in at launch. What do you expect?
It's come a long way now.
It has, yeah. What do you expect that we'll see from this, if anything? At E3?
I think we might see like a little like more of a stick because the trailer last year was more of a CG proof of concept thing.
Yeah.
It was more of like hey, this is a thing we're working on. See you later, kind of thing. Yeah, it was like it was one of those trailers where you're like, okay, this project exists, but don't put a pre-order down quite yet. Sort of like Ubisoft does a lot. These guys have been pretty consistent, and they are a factory. I mean, they churn this stuff out. It wouldn't surprise me to see a gameplay demo or something of this. I don't
a
think
gameplay
this
demo.
This,
wow.
Yeah, I don't think this is, or maybe a gameplay trailer. Like, I think we will see some. I think we could see some in-engine stuff on this. Like, I don't think it's this year, but like, it feels about time that they would be able to show you like a little vertical slice sort of thing.
Well, one thing you cannot say is that they're not afraid to release games unless they're perfect or to show games. Like, if they're willing to release State of Decay 2 in the state that it was in, they're going to show State of Decay 3 before a lot of maybe other developers would be willing to show it.
I mean, I like the State of Decay games. I respect what they're after, and I kind of respect their willingness to sort of like put out these like sprawling, messy games and sort of like, you know, tighten them up as they go. Mm-hmm. Some of that, to me, some of the jank in the State of Decay games is sort of the appeal in places.
Yeah.
Like, I understand.
Sometimes it's really funny. Like, just crazy stuff happens in the game, and
I understand why someone wouldn't like it, because, like, you know, there are consequences in that game.
Yeah.
You know, like
the survival stuff can be pretty.
Survival stuff, and like, you lose a character, you lose the character. Like, you know, if it's your favorite, one of your favorites, then that changes how you're going to play the game from now on. But if you can kind of let go of that sort of have to do everything perfectly thing and kind of let it unfold, it's a lot of fun.
I would also argue that franchise, of a lot of the ones we're talking about for Xbox, could benefit the most from just having more raw horsepower.
Yeah.
Because really, they tend to make those games, they build them over the head of the hardware that they're making them for a lot of times. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if they just have a bunch of extra overhead now that they can use to develop with, that portends even more towards them actually showing something from the game.
There's a lot of ambition in those games, and their reach exceeds their grasp at times. But I like that. You know, it's better than sitting back and not doing anything. But yeah, I mean, there can be frustrating. I think I stopped playing 2 when I hit a point where it just wouldn't let me park my cars anymore.
Right.
And I'm just like, all right, well then, fuck you.
Got to draw the line somewhere. That's a good place to do
I really like them, and I guess I'm kind of waiting for the State of Decay that finally sort of realizes its ambitions and sort of nails the formula. Maybe 3 will be that.
Certainly no excuses now. With all the horsepower you have at your disposal to develop the game.
You got support, you got like a network of developers working together now with the new acquisitions. I feel like you've got kind of the in-house expertise and in-house advisory capacity that you can make. This can definitely be something special even beyond what they've already done.
Yep. I'm excited for it, and I do agree with you. I think we'll see something from it. I think I would be surprised if they do a big demo of it. But I do think we'll see like in-engine stuff, like a gameplay trailer.
I think the size of the presentation of this is going to depend on what else is ready.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, if like
I mean, that always factors in, yeah.
If you're not ready to show like Fable 4 or like a new Forza or whatever, or maybe even Hellblade, like, yeah, bust out the State of Decay deep dive, you know, like all the day.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be this game is going to be what we would call in a show stack the accordion.
Yep. The one that can fly. They're like, oh, your demo's 10 minutes? How about 4?
Yeah. Oh, Starfield dropped out. Now it's 10
now again. It's 10 again. Exactly.
Can you, just zombies. Just give us zombies. You know?
I hear you. Next up, we're going to talk about Rare's Everwild. Matt, initially, one of my E3 predictions, and I removed it for something else, was that Everwild would be the big surprise from E3 2021, the game that like people aren't thinking about or don't care about right now, but after E3 they will. How do you feel about that? Are you excited for Everwild?
I'm interested. I feel it's kind of a coin flip as to whether we even see it.
We have 2 trailers for it already.
Yeah, but they seemed real sketchy on what it was.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, even last E3, they're sort of like, yeah, we're still sort of figuring out what the game is. And then later they're like, no, we didn't mean that. We mean, details. Like, yeah, okay, sure. I think this game is spent a lot of time in kind of a nebulous form, and they're sort of hammering together what it's going to actually, be. If they've done that by now, maybe. If not, I could see it skipping and not popping up until later.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is kind of ambiguous what it actually is, but it really is starting to appear like it's kind of like a hunter-gatherer adventure style game.
Sort of, or there's some Zelda in there. There's some There's some Far Cry in there. There's a lot. I mean, it's a mix of. It feels like a mix of like about 5 people's different favorite things.
I wouldn't be surprised as well if there's some kind of huge online component to it after the success of Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. Well, also it feels like. Doesn't it feel like someone in that dev team making some decisions is a big fan of Journey?
Yeah.
Like there's going to be something like that in there, you know?
And I will say this, Matt, I have finally given up my pipe dream of a new Banjo game, and I will not I will not be predicting that Rare will show a new Banjo game.
You decided to stop doing that to yourself, huh?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I think I finally accepted that franchise may just be dead, or best case scenario, it ends up getting farmed out to someone else, and Rare doesn't handle it, because I feel like by now, if Rare wanted to do it, it would have done it. So I would not keep my fingers crossed in hopes for a new Banjo game.
I do feel like the lack of performance from other 3D platformer kind of revivals has probably put Microsoft off that idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Psychonauts 2 is coming soon, but
if I were feeling daring, if I were Microsoft and I was feeling daring, I would have Rare make it for the Switch.
That certainly is daring.
Because you're still gonna make money, and you've got a good relationship with Nintendo, and you already put Banjo in Smash, like that's a pretty good partnership bone.
I think the only way they would do that is if Nintendo agreed to put Game Pass on Switch, which is never gonna happen.
Yeah, but like we know they tried. We know Microsoft was trying to negotiate that at one point.
Yeah, they're trying to any device. Microsoft's trying to get Game Pass on it.
Banjo 3 is a pretty good horse for that horse trading situation. I was like, because Nintendo has to know like that their 3D platformers, especially the classic stuff, does sell on that system in a way that it doesn't on others.
Everywhere else.
And if they got Mario Odyssey out and they're working on a Donkey Kong, so to speak, or so we believe. If they could have another company crap out a Banjo game on par with what the other stuff Nintendo's making, like that would be a feather in their cap.
Yep, would be.
It's just a matter of whether you could get past all the corporate red tape and egos.
My guess is no.
To make it happen. Usually not, but you never know.
Yeah.
You never know these days. I mean, people said the same thing about Banjo and Smash.
That's true.
So we'll see.
Strange things are happening these days.
Microsoft recognizing very strongly that Nintendo is not really direct competition to them, and that anything they can do together to damage Sony, you never know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put money on it, but I'm not going to say it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
But it's probably more likely we will just see a little trailer for Everwild.
Yep, that's my guess too. Next up, Fable 4. I think it's going to be called. Who knows?
I think it's going to be Fable something else.
Subtitle.
Or either Fable subtitle or just Fable.
Yeah. Being developed by...
they're starting over.
Yeah, being developed by Playground Games, the studio behind the Forza Horizon franchise. In fact, the game is being built on the Forza Horizon engine, which when we discussed it earlier, I was very concerned about. You didn't seem anywhere near as concerned about it as I was.
No.
All we've seen so far is this CG trailer for the game. They haven't shown anything. Do you think we'll see anything at E3? I really am feeling like probably not. Yeah,
the cynical side of me feels like Fable's still very much in the kneading the dough phase.
Yeah.
Like you're not ready to see anything. I think they just showed us that CG teaser is sort of, evidence that they're doing it. But you never know. Like, Playground is an efficient company and they might have something. I think it depends when they intend to put it out. Like if that game's next fall or at the earliest, like there's no reason to waste time on it this year.
Yeah. I think people will be disappointed if they don't see something on it, but I would set your expectations to middling.
I would love to see it because, of all of Microsoft's projects in development, I would say that is like either my number one or number two one I'm most curious about.
Right. The curiosity level for it is like sky high. I agree.
Yeah.
It's the biggest X factor without a doubt.
Yeah. Like I'm not saying I'm excited about it, but I'm really curious.
Yep.
I just want to see things. But it would, I'm personally assuming we're not going to see it.
I would assume that as well, and I think everybody watching the show right now should assume that as well.
Yeah.
And then if it does happen, woohoo, we're all surprised.
Oh, yeah, very pleasantly surprised if that does happen.
Which is one of our categories in Best of E3, I believe. So that would be great if we could slot that in as the winner.
If that actually happened and I actually liked what I saw, that's a real strong candidate for that category.
Especially after Fable Legends, which was this game that was done and went into beta and tons of people played it and then they just killed it.
And spent money on it. Like people there was microtransactions that people spent money on. I mean, they got their money back, but that was far along. Like I have never really heard a satisfying explanation as to why they killed that.
I haven't either. Other than it wasn't really like a Fable game, you know?
No, but it was kind of fun. Like I played it at E3 twice, and I liked it. Like also, like I mean, I am a fan. It was an asymmetrical multiplayer game where like 4 players were playing the heroes, and 1 player kind of played the dungeon master sort of thing. It was like throwing traps and monsters in the way of the players, and I really like that.
I like the idea of it too. Yeah,
I like that. I have some board games that play like that, and it's a lot of fun in that setting. I don't know if a video game has ever really nailed that, but I'd like to see someone try.
Yeah.
And the money and muscle of Microsoft behind that made it feel like maybe they could get somewhere with it, and it just never happened.
Just didn't seem like the right IP for it, to be honest.
It was a weird choice for that. Yeah. It would really work for a setup like that? Star Wars.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Like four Rebel players and 1 Imperial player. I have a board game called Imperial Assault that's like that. Like that would really work.
I think Halo would work too.
Yeah, Halo would work.
Because you have all these races of enemies, and if you could just spawn like 50 Flood or whatever, any of the different enemy races that are in the franchise, like you could do some cool stuff.
Especially if everyone was playing Spartans and like ODST and like it was like a twin stick thing almost.
Yeah.
But like the Flood or the Covenant player could kind of like trigger like waves.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
In different places, like that would be a thing.
It could work, but not gonna happen.
No, now we're off in really weird territory on that. It's like we're brainstorming stuff for them.
Well, Matt, speaking of really weird territory, here's Arc 2.
Yeah.
Somehow has become an Xbox/PC exclusive. It stars Vin Diesel.
Vehicle identification number Diesel. Say his full name.
It's just so bizarre. Seeing him dressed up as like this villager with like the headdress on. It just, when I think of Vin Diesel, this is not what I think about. And I do know he's like a big gamer.
I think of a giant nerd. And
I know he is.
Like exactly, it feels exactly up his alley on this one.
Well, I think it's something that he would want to do.
He's a big fan. Yeah, he's a big fan of the first game.
It just doesn't match his typecasting, where as far as what he is in film and stuff like that. Like, I just don't see him being like the emotional tribal leader for some reason.
No, it's weird, but it's like it's funny because like everyone thinks of him basically as Dom from Fast and Furious. Right. But if you see him in interviews or you meet him, he's not like that.
I know. It's odd that he's been cast that way.
Which also like, I mean, he's executive producer on most of the stuff he does. So like, so it's like Dom in the Fast and the Furious. The choice, apparently.
Yeah, he wants to play that role. It's so weird.
But like, he's not like that in person.
I know.
He's a pretty open, like personable person.
He's a geek.
Yeah, absolutely.
He loves geek culture. Yeah.
He's happy to talk about all that stuff. I mean, he taught Judi Dench how to play D&D.
Right.
When they were making Chronicles of Riddick, like that was his thing. Is he wanted to work with Judi Dench, and apparently one night he got some of the crew and cast together and taught her how to play D&D. And I would pay a lot of money if there's a video of that somewhere because I desperately want to see Judi Dench learn how to play a half elf. Yeah. That is a holy grail for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we might see a lot of this one.
I do too.
Especially because Arc 1 like basically just finished.
Yep.
You know, the DLC just came out. Like they've made a big deal about like the saga is complete kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this feels like pretty much the right time. You know, and they got to keep that monetary, you know, that revenue wheel rolling. So I feel like this is probably a pretty safe bet to be one of the big blowouts in this presentation.
People may not realize how big Ark, the first game,
Ark is big.
It
Ark
is gigantic. Among my nephews, it is one of the biggest games ever. Like, they play it obsessively. And this game's going to be a big hit for Microsoft. It's going to move the needle for them. I know you may sit there and be like, I don't care about Ark. I don't really either. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I played the first arc.
I've tried to play it 4 times, and I've bounced off it every time. It's so bad. Like,
and when it first launched, it was so hard to get through the first hour.
It's just not fun for me.
I didn't find it fun either.
It's very hard to control. I find the controls and interface terrible. I think it's janky as all hell in a bad way. Like, I'm like, I just want to ride a dinosaur, but I can't even build a hut. Like,
yeah, I know, and it takes like 3 hours, 4 hours before you can even think about riding a dinosaur. But
like, there's people that get it. Obviously, it works for a lot of people. And
my one nephew has built like a shopping mall in that game. Like, it's unreal how far he has gone into it, and he waits for every little new DLC release, every expansion. Like, I'll talk to his parents, and they'll be like, "Hey, Seth wants to know, like, when is the new arc blah, blah, blah coming out?" I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even follow the game. And they're like flabbergasted. They're like, you know everything. And I'm like, I don't follow that game. It's funny how parents are like, well, there can't be that many, right? And it's like, you'd be surprised. But anyway, I agree with you. I do expect that we're going to see a lot from this game at E3 2021. I would not be surprised if there's a big 7-8 minute long gameplay demo to show it off. I also would not be surprised if it's hosted by Vin Diesel.
Yeah, I would imagine that might be a thing, especially since he's a producer on the game.
Yep.
So,
are you guys starting to figure out yet that what I was saying before we started talking about Xbox, about how many games there are? We're not done yet, and we're still going. Like, there are a lot of games that are going to be shown.
Ark is one of those games that I would say, like, Ark is one of those games I wish I liked.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There's nothing in that game that I shouldn't like. It's like sci-fi stuff and weird building stuff and dinosaurs and taming dinosaurs and fighting dinosaurs and riding dinosaurs and dragons and things. I'm just like, I just can't.
Yeah.
Just can't.
Yeah, me either. Next up, Stalker 2. Another PC/Xbox exclusive. Matt, did you like the first Stalker?
I did, like, once it was modded up.
Yeah, and fixed a little bit, because it also had some issues at launch. It was a little busted.
But it's still good. Like, it's not for everybody. It's very hard, and there's consequences for screwing up and all that. But it's kind of like nothing else. Like, there's it's a very singular game.
It's like survival horror,
survival
/
horror
immersive
shooter, immersive sim. It's everything to some degree, but it's also like, no, it's not. The combination of it is different from everything. It's also like very narrative driven.
I'll admit, I bounced off the first one pretty hard. It's one of those Eastern European games. They're always set in like Chernobyl or some place like that. I don't know what it is about games like that just don't interest me, but this franchise in particular has just never really resonated for me.
That guy at the campfire was like, "Get out of here, stalker," and you're like, "Okay,
yeah, all right, you don't have to ask me twice. I'm good."
It's also based on a really good movie. If you ever feel like looking that one up.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see a lot of this?
I feel like this is early.
They've only released like 2 trailers, and the second one was literally like 20 seconds long or something. We haven't seen much of it so far. I think it's still probably a ways away. I wouldn't be surprised if this game is even scheduled for like late 2022 or 2023.
Yeah, I feel like this is a 23 game.
Yeah, so I don't expect to see much of it. Maybe a trailer that finally shows off real gameplay, because they put out a gameplay trailer that ended up just being like, hey, here's some in-engine stuff, so you know that like the game actually exists, but it wasn't really a gameplay trailer that we're used to in the traditional sense of the word anyway. Next up, like I said, it just keeps going, and this one's a big one. Perfect Dark. Coming from Microsoft's brand new studio, no pedigree, nothing to look at to say, hey, these guys and girls are good at this or bad at that.
Just a CG trailer of a tower.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. What we've seen of it so far didn't show much. It's all CG. There's no in-engine stuff. Do you think we'll see much from this game?
I don't think so. I think this one's way out too.
Yeah, I would say 2023 at the earliest.
Yeah.
Even though they had worked on it for quite a while before it was announced. They had been working on it for at least a year before they should put out the trailer for it. But that's still not a lot of time for a new studio to get up and running.
I think they've got the shooter thing covered in this presentation.
Yeah.
You got Halo Infinite, you got Bright Memory probably.
I also wonder just how much built-in interest there is left for Perfect Dark.
Yeah, I mean there's definitely a nostalgia factor, but who knows what this is going to turn out to be, or if it's it seems like a reimagining reboot sort of thing.
We got to be careful talking about Perfect Dark, Matt. The last time we talked about it, people got really angry with us. We were talking about the original and how we feel like, it doesn't hold up as well as maybe we might have thought it would when we first played. Oh, and people were like, "Are you crazy? It's like the greatest shooter of a generation." And I'm like, yeah.
It's not even as good as GoldenEye.
I agree with that. Yeah. It ran poorly, even with the expansion pack. And yeah, I probably played Perfect Dark about 1/5 as much as I played GoldenEye, to put it in perspective. Yeah. And look, I'm glad that they're bringing it back. It does have fans, obviously, because when we talk about it, they get pissed off. So they're out there.
Yeah, there's definitely potential there, but it's also sort of like, I think even if you're a fan, you have to admit that, like, it could probably stay in the past.
Yeah.
Are you going to like...
Joanne is not really a memorable character. The plot was
kind of... Are you going to like whatever new thing they make as much as you like the N64 one?
Probably not.
Even if you are a diehard fan of the N64 Perfect Dark, it's like that was sort of a point in time.
Yeah.
And
the plot was kind of goofy. Like, I don't know. We'll see. Honestly, starting with an IP I know is probably better than launching a new IP. So I guess I'm just going to withhold judgment on this game and hope that the new studio can pull off something really cool. But like the plot was dumb in the last one. Where do you go from there? From like a goofy alien named Elvis? Like, is it still going to have kind of like that tongue-in-cheek element to it, like the first one did? It'll be interesting.
And if it doesn't, are you alienating the people who liked it?
Exactly.
That's all. I think it's a hard property to rework.
Yeah, I'd agree with it. So we'll see. But Perfect Dark on the docket, another game. And then next we'll talk briefly about Starfield, because still we only have like a 5-second nothing trailer for it. This is really maybe the biggest game that's impending other than Halo. What do you think we're going to see from Bethesda's Starfield? And I hope to God we see something.
Yeah, I would think we're going to see some kind of gameplay demo here, either pre-recorded or, I don't know what they're going to do with this presentation, if it's all pre-recorded or what. But I would like to think that this would be sort of the third pillar of this presentation. You've got Halo, you've got Arc, and you've got Starfield. Would kind of be my expectation.
Yeah.
Maybe we do see it this year. Maybe we see it early next year. But I think it's about time for Starfield. There's so much smoke here. There has to be some fire.
There's also so many leaks, and we haven't really got any footage of it yet. But tons of screenshots have leaked out. It looks pretty awesome from the screens that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, Skyrim in space is not a thing I'm going to sneeze at.
Yeah,
for sure. Like I'm definitely interested. I don't know. It's like, again, this is when I said that like Fable 4 was like number 1 or number 2 on my curiosity list for Microsoft. Starfield's number 1.
Yep.
Or number, depending on what the day it is, but usually Starfield is number 1.
Yeah. I agree with
space
that.
Space stuff is my thing. I'm in the middle. I'm still, working on my Mass Effect trilogy replay here with the Legendary Edition.
Yeah.
And, I'm still in the middle of all that.
I just finished Biomutant, believe it or not. I ended up finishing that game.
I went back to it a little bit, but
it got so easy after a while that I just tore through the last half of the game. Like literally just tore through it.
I'm not sure, but for me, it's been very frustrating because I like to sort of explore and push things. And I die in the stupid water so much because I think I can make it. And then suddenly the energy or whatever drains way faster than you think.
They made the distance of those things perfect. You die before you make the last jump to make it to land. I tried it. And then finally I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to upgrade my jet ski. And didn't realize, I had to Google how to upgrade the jet ski. I didn't realize, that you sit on it, and then there's a special menu that pops up to upgrade it. It's not in, the other menu. It's so dumb. But anyway, there's a pro tip for you. If you're wondering how to upgrade the jet ski, that's how you do it.
Because I went back to the guy who gave me the jet ski. And he wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you have to sit on the jet ski, and then there's a little thing that pops up, and you select it, and I went from base jet ski to fully upgraded in 1 second. And once you do that, the game, once you have the jet ski and you can go anywhere, the game just is a cakewalk. I literally never died the last more than half of the game. So anyway, I did finish Biomutant. If I have time, look for a game eval of that soon. Let's see. Next up, here comes the Forza games. The Forza Horizon, Forza Motorsport. What do you expect from both of these games? So Forza Motorsport was shown at the debut of Xbox Series. Forza Horizon 5 has not been shown at all, but that game is like a clock. That franchise is like a clock.
Yeah.
It comes out without fail every other year. So it's due. Motorsport probably should be due. It's been, Matt, like 5 years or something since the last Motorsport game.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2017, I think it was the last one. So it's had plenty of time to work on this in conjunction with Horizon. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a nice chunk of demo from this too. And keeping in mind that for whatever reason, Microsoft always shows too much of this game at its press conferences. Yeah. I don't know why it is, but it always does.
It's a good like graphical bells and whistles show off thing. You know, cars are easy. You know, vehicles are easy to model and make look photoreal.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. But like, I'm still a little shocked that like their big ray tracing demo wasn't just panning around a Forza Motorsport car.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't because I'm tired of that. But like. Yeah, I mean, Horizon 5 would be nice. There are a lot of leaks. I mean, it feels about time, you know, and you're starting to get leaks about like brand deals, which feel like that's pretty, you know, Hot Wheels. You know, there's like, you know, rumblings about Hot Wheels having a deal with the new one, which means like that would have to be pretty soon because you don't approach the companies for that without, you know, having something directly in the pipeline. Supposedly it's set in Mexico. You know, there's a lot of some detail coming out, but like it feels about time because I think the last one was what, 2018?
Was it? I thought it was 2019. Forza Horizon 4. No,
Forza Horizon 4. I thought it was 2018.
Huh?
I thought that was right after I moved into this house.
Then it's overdue for a new installment. That gives them an extra year, and obviously they're working on a bunch of stuff. So
yeah, September 2018.
Okay, so it's definitely due then. I thought it was only 2 years, but you're right. If it's 3, it's definitely due. So I would not be surprised if we get a pretty good look at that as well. Matt, there's just so much. Like, part of the problem now is how do you squeeze all this stuff into one press conference? There's going to be some hard cuts, I think. Because then what about third party? Are you going to show any third party stuff at your presser?
I mean, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Some. Like they've
Especially
still
if PlayStation's not doing anything. You have all the third-party stuff to yourself to pick and choose from. How can you not show it? So there's going to be some disappointment for some people, I think, after the Microsoft press conference is over because there's just not enough time in the world to go over all this stuff. It just took us...
There's like a non-zero chance that they're going to get some COD in there.
Matt, it just took us 30 minutes to talk about it, their lineup. Think about that. So if you actually show, like, trailers for all this stuff, and you do the intros and the outros and all the staging stuff that goes on, like, like they're going to run out of time.
I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to do it more like a direct, where it's just like boom, 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 boom. I think that's the style. That's the proven style that works at this point.
Yeah.
So I would guess that that's how they're going to roll with it.
But I think you're still going to get Phil in there doing little bits in between.
Oh, you'll get the usual executive spiel. But yeah, I think it's going to be a faster paced thing. Yep. Sony does that too. You know, like they learned eventually.
Yep. So anyway, it is shaping up to be one hell of an E3 for Xbox. If you got a Series X, regardless of the stuff that gets cut out of this presentation, I think you're going to be very, very happy when E3 is over with. You're going to feel justified in that $547 that you dropped for your Xbox Series X. I think Microsoft is primed to have a really, really good E3. I don't know how you could watch what we just covered in the last 30 minutes and not be convinced of that. If you're an Xbox fan, you should be very, very excited. All right, let's move on to one of the biggest third-party publishers and one of the few that is actually doing a press conference, Ubisoft. Though, Matt, I will say this. The lineup for Ubisoft this year may be the weakest of the E3 lineup I've ever seen. There are, obviously, Assassin's Creed has taken the year off, so there's one huge franchise that most times is at the Ubisoft press event that's not going to be there. Watch Dogs, we're not going to see anything from that franchise there.
No.
But we are going
to... If ever again.
If ever again. Yeah, after what happened with Legion, it did not sell very well. So, relatively speaking anyway. For a smaller publisher, it would have done fine. But for Ubisoft, which counts on like 11 to 14 million in sales. It didn't get anywhere near that. So
especially with the amount of time it was in development.
Yep, and all the headaches that went along with it. And
yeah,
then,
they've given that franchise 3 really solid shots, and I just hasn't happened.
It really hasn't. I think the sales may have gone down for 3 versus 2, actually.
Maybe. Could have been.
Which is a shame because it was a far more ambitious game, to be perfectly honest with you, from the other 2. And I would argue it also finally got to, or at least close to, what was promised with the original Watch Dogs when we first saw it. Because as you know, a lot of the features that were supposed to be in the first one never made it, and they slowly trickled into the next 2 games. So big boys off the board for Ubisoft, but we are getting a look at Rainbow Six. Let's see, it was called Rainbow Six Quarantine. Then was it called Extinction or something for a little while? Now it's called Rainbow Six Extraction. However, it does not appear that the actual game itself has changed. It still appears...
No, you just keep changing the title.
They changed the title, but it still appears that it's going to be kind of a horde-based zombie shooter. Maybe still should have given it its own IP instead of attaching Rainbow Six to it. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's free publicity, basically.
Yeah. But it appears that this is going to be the big focus of Ubisoft's E3 presence this year.
Good luck.
They're looking at that Siege money, and I think they're trying to think, all these Siege players are going to come over and play this zombie shooter. I think they may be in for an unpleasant surprise. But is it asymmetrical? I don't remember, actually.
I don't know.
But I know it's a team-based zombie shooter. Maybe
I don't think another player is on the zombie side.
What'd you say?
I don't think another player is on the zombie side.
Oh, okay. So it's just a co-op zombie shooter.
I think it's just, yeah.
I mean, they're a dime a dozen. I don't know. I liked World War Z a lot. More than I probably should have. So maybe I'll like this more than I probably should. But again, I just don't think it makes sense for Rainbow Six. Maybe they should have launched a new IP. Maybe not a bad idea.
I don't think a new IP would make sense here. I think Rainbow Six, I don't know why you're so dead set against it not being Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six is a complete bullshit label you can slap on anything. It doesn't, who cares?
Because I remember the real Rainbow Six. It was a tactical team-based shooter where
who gives a shit? Now they're fighting drones in a jungle with Terminators and Predators and shit.
I'm not alone, Matt. There's a lot of people that remember classic Rainbow Six as something entirely different.
I remember classic Rainbow Six, but that was 1996. Move on. It's weird and sci-fi now. It's all, and you like you said, this kind of thing's a dime a dozen now. You slap Rainbow Six on that thing, you put Tom Clancy on it. Now you got the attention of a bunch of gun nut weirdos and people who like to play these games by default, and they'll give it a try. Maybe I don't know if that's going to work long term, but it makes sense to me.
Matt, I think part of my frustration, Matt, is that they've also completely wiped what Ghost Recon was. So,
sure,
I had these 2 franchises, and I would agree. They were too similar probably to exist, at least from the same publisher. So, okay, you want to branch out a little bit? Pick one. Pick one of the 2 franchises and go off on a tangent. Don't take both of them off in these weird directions. I don't have a Ghost Recon or a Rainbow Six that I like at this point. They've all just kind of jumped the shark, to be perfectly honest.
Well, it feels like Siege or Rainbow Six has kind of become the more competitive thing, and Ghost Recon has become sort of the open world co-op thing.
Yeah.
And beyond that, who knows? There used to be a time when the Tom Clancy brand was even wider. You had stuff like End War and things like that. I mean, I remember stuff like Rainbow Six Vegas. I really liked Vegas.
I did too.
But that era seems to be more or less over.
It does.
And it's funny then, because even at the time of Rainbow Six Vegas, people were complaining about how it was too action shooty, and the old Rainbow Sixes were tactical
if only they knew
games.
What was coming.
And the majority of the gameplay in the original Rainbow Sixes was literally drawing lines through maps.
I know.
And then they would just your guys would just sort of do it.
You plan it, and then you hit the execute button and just let the bullets fly. Yeah.
And you could play one guy and help if you needed. You'd jump in and help if you needed to. But generally, we were hoping that you planned it right so you didn't need to intervene.
Yeah.
And then Rainbow Six Vegas was it's too shooty and actiony. And now everyone's just I wish they go back to that Rainbow Six Vegas. That was really smart and tactical. This is it's just getting dumber and dumber.
Yep.
So I get what you mean, but it's those days are you're never going back to the original Rainbow Sixes. That's not going to happen.
We're going to rely on a smaller
Red Storm Rising
publisher.
was a long, long time ago.
It was. Let's see. Next up, we're not going to talk about this too long. Far Cry 6, because we just covered it in the last episode of GameFace. They just did their big blowout, their pre-E3
this
blowout.
is also going to be a big focus, I think, because it comes out this year.
Yep. And pretty
really
soon. It's not.
They really want you to buy the statue of the handicapped dog.
Which I would probably buy. That dog's pretty cute with his little cart that he has his hind legs set up in. But I expect this probably will be the biggest focus of Ubisoft's press conference. They'll probably close it with it. Big gameplay demo.
Yeah,
although there's tons of gameplay out there already, honestly. Like, they let a lot of influencers play it and put up big chunks of gameplay.
Yeah, and they've done, like, the gameplay trailer and stuff. I mean, they also haven't gone super deep into, like, what the various things are, so I could see some of that, like the weapon mods.
Yeah.
You can do a deeper dive on that. Really kind of dig into the urban combat, because there's never been a city in the franchise before. There's stuff you could do. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of sold on this one already, so
me too.
I'm sort of fine. Like, I don't need a ton more.
Yeah.
But that's not going to stop them.
Making sure it's not a piece of junk, because
it
is a Ubisoft open world game that tend to launch a little janky at times.
Yeah, I mean, it's Far Cry. They're all pretty solid most of the time.
Yep. But I'm pretty excited about this game. Their little event definitely convinced me that it's something worth keeping an eye on and worth following on sifted.net. If you don't know how that functionality works, just go to the game page and click on the gear, and anything we publish for that game will pop up to the top of your Sift. A little pro tip there for people who may be noobs to Sifted. And this is where things start to get a little dicey for Ubisoft and maybe not all that exciting. Matt, what do you think is going to happen with Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Nothing.
Because Michel Ancel left. He's no longer at Ubisoft. He says he's like some kind of an advisor on this game now, but he basically had some allegations made against him, and shortly after that, he's like, you know what, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need him to make this game, really.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's a big enough project, and everybody seems to understand what it's supposed to be. But like, it's been running silent so long. It feels like a bit of a vanity project. Ansel was trying to get it made for years and years, and there's some who believe that even the existence of the project was basically a bone thrown to him to keep him quiet or happy. Who knows? Like, there's a pretty large part of me that assumes that I will never play this game.
Yeah, I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that I'll probably never play it, but if I do, I'll be like, bonus. Because you got to realize, like, people have been begging for this for, like, ever since the first one launched. And we got that, like, little CG thing that floated around the internet for years and years, and, like, nothing ever came of it. And we got, like, all this footage of, like, what they were working on, and they completely trashed all that. And now it's, like, this open world game set in space, and yeah, I don't know. They just recently did say that, like, everything's going fine. Michel Ancel leaving didn't affect the project. He's still around. We can still talk to him if we need to, that kind of stuff. So I do think it's still in full-scale development, but we'll see if it ever gets to a place where they're happy releasing it. But, I mean, looking at what else Ubisoft has to show, it's hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't show this game. Because they have done a bunch of live streams where they even showed, like, wireframe stuff to fans. So it's hard for me to imagine that they wouldn't show what they've got so far.
Sort of. So far, everything we've seen has been either CG or pieces.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know. Like, the idea that they've somehow pulled all that together in some kind of game still leaves me skeptical.
I understand it totally. I just don't know what else Ubisoft is going to show, to be honest with you, that's actually going to get people excited. I would also argue that going to the Ubisoft forward/direct format hurts Ubisoft more than any other publisher as far as E3 is concerned, because Ubisoft's press conferences were the ones that were always a little different. And some people may have hated it because they'll hire a comedian to host it, and they'll do a dance number on stage, and they'll play laser tag in the crowd, and they did things differently. And I feel like Ubisoft loses a little bit of its E3 flavor with the way things are right now, though I'm guessing next year everything returns back to normal. What would you put Beyond Good and Evil 2 at a percentage of being shown at E3?
like 10%.
Oh, I would go higher than that. I would go probably 50-50 that we'll see something from it. We have to. It's been in development for forever. Like,
we don't have to anything. Ubisoft will quietly kill anything they want. You go talk to the Skull and Bones team about that.
Well, when we start going through the last couple options here on Ubisoft's E3 press conference plate, I think you may change your mind. For instance...
I don't think so. Hang on a sec.
Sure. Uh-oh, we got a problem at Matt's house. I was afraid somebody broke into your house again, Matt.
No, the cat pooped in the litter box in the bathroom, and I had to close the door because holy shit.
Literally, holy shit. That's funny.
Like, I was getting distracted.
From the aroma. That's funny. Well, I don't know. I have a feeling you might change your mind, Matt, when we start talking about the last couple games that could be there, like Riders Republic, which is the follow-up to Steep. I mean, this is what we're talking about, though, for Ubisoft's press conference. This is all it's got.
I mean, they still do that. I mean, that doesn't, having the rest of the lineup be underwhelming doesn't mean Beyond Good and Evil exists in any form beyond theory.
Yeah, I guess. Riders Republic is the sequel to Steep. Spiritual successor maybe is the better way to put it.
What about that roller derby thing? Did that ever
Roller
happen?
Champions?
Yeah.
Who knows? That's what I'm talking about, though. That's where we're at with Ubisoft at E3.
Right, but I'm saying Beyond Good and Evil 2 is in the same category with things like that, where it's like they just vanish.
Yeah.
Like we see them once, and then they sort of like...
Well, they did show Roller Champions twice. I mean, I think they're going to show Roller Champions, and I think they're going to show Riders Republic. I think they'll show both of them. Will people care? Does it move the needle? No and no. They just don't. This could honestly be the worst showing for Ubisoft at E3 in like 15 years.
Yeah, like, and I'm sure, they might show like the new Assassin's Creed a teaser or something like that.
You think they will?
I think they'll show something.
Oh, I didn't even put that on the rundown. I just really didn't think that was even an option.
I mean, it's probably next year, but like I think you'll get at least like they'll be like, oh, it's going to be set in wherever, and we don't have a name for it, but it's coming. Because they got to show something about their ongoing stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
and they know by this point. The new Assassin's Creed is definitely like probably a year in development.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they show like more Valhalla DLC.
No, Valhalla DLC's done.
It's all finished now.
As far as I know, yeah,
okay.
I think so. I hope so, because like that the Druids thing was not great.
The DLC for that has not been as good as Odyssey's. Not even close.
No, not at all. I mean, I guess they might have another pack in there. But the thing is, like the second pack on the current one, the ancient trilogy as they call them, has traditionally been like the big weird thing where you go to the land of the gods and like do all the mythological stuff, and that was in the main game of Valhalla. Like you went to Asgard and did all that stuff with the gods and all that. So I don't know what that would be. And then the flip. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing some continuation of the Immortals series.
No.
A new game of
maybe
that
DLC
somewhere
or a sequel.
They already did 3. They just put out a third DLC for that. The DLC is probably done for that by now, especially because the last two, one of the new DLC doesn't even have anything to do with anything. It's just like it's a separate thing with a different character.
Yeah,
and
it's really weird.
The China one was similar, but it was like at least this the form of the game. This is like almost like an arena battle. Like I haven't even played it.
They definitely had a different strategy for the post-launch content for that game, for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't expansions of what was already there. It was more like sides. It was more like what they did with Far Cry 5, where it was all like side story things, like go to Mars or fight zombies or whatever, which is fine. I guess it's like, but I kind of like in an open world, action RPG like Immortal. I like adding on to the world. I like adding like more stuff for you to do in the game as opposed to like side story stuff that you play separately. But whatever you want to do. But I would like to see that series continue in some form. Personally, I would love to see that same treatment given to Egyptian mythology.
No.
Because that shit's weird.
It is weird. Matt, but you know that they can't show a new Assassin's Creed until it's leaked first.
All right. Somebody has to get on an airplane with a laptop that's open.
Or get on the subway with a laptop that's open.
So hopefully you got like 3 days.
I mean, guys. I can't remember the last Assassin's Creed that we did not at least know the setting before it was ever announced. Can you?
No, it's been a while.
A long while. Yeah.
Probably maybe Black Flag?
Yeah.
The last one?
I think so. Yep.
Because we definitely found out about, and even before that, we knew 3 from leaks, and we knew
you can Unity go down all of
from
them.
leaks, and we
Unity,
knew Syndicate from leaks.
All of them. Yep.
Syndicate, we knew the original title
was
going to be Victoria.
Yep.
And then, we definitely, Origins was leaked. Origins was a reworking of their old Osiris project to some degree, so that was not a surprise.
Maybe they finally batten down the hatches and there are going to be no leaks for this one. I mean, I would put the new Assassin's Creed at a 10% chance we see something, but at the same time, they're pretty desperate this year, so they may roll it out just because.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be like concept art pans or something, but I think we will at least find out where it's set.
Because Ubisoft did say, in addition to this stuff, a few surprises. So
yeah, maybe just because it hasn't leaked, here's their chance to announce it for once.
That's true. Before Kotaku does.
As long as nobody knows already, let's just get ahead of it and say it's set in feudal Japan or something, whatever.
Which would be awesome.
I don't think it will be. I think Ghost of Tsushima probably killed that for a while because you're going to be compared to that game forever. But
I would love that though. I'm ready to get back.
I did hear some rumors that it was going to be set in Aztec stuff or like New World, not New World because it would be before the Colombian invasion, but like Incan or Aztec or something like that, which would be pretty cool.
I'd take that too. So anyway, that's Ubisoft at E3 2021. I will say this. It has the opportunity to maybe surprise more than most publishers because it's announced so little that's going to be at the show, and we know so little already. So, and Ubisoft is good. Remember, there was the Mario plus Rabbids thing that came out of nowhere, although that also leaked beforehand.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be a big Just Dance number, so...
And they'll be dancing in the streets.
Just for Pactor.
Yeah. Who loves that for some unknown reason. But anyway, that's Ubisoft. Time to move on to one of the big 3. Nintendo. Really, still full bore with Switch. Just can't make enough to satisfy demand still. Still a big thirst for software, despite the fact that it has a pretty good library at this point. In fact, an amazing library at this point for a Nintendo platform. Is it its 4th year now? Is that right?
Yep. Gonna be 4 years old. It's already 4 years old.
Yeah, it just passed back in March, I guess, 4 years. And it's still going strong, which I can't remember the last Nintendo platform that did that. The Wii didn't do that. The Wii was already dying by now.
Yeah.
The GameCube definitely didn't do it. The Wii U obviously didn't do it. The N64 didn't do it either. I mean, really,
this is their strongest system since the Super Nintendo.
Yep, absolutely. And, I mean, man, there's just as many games still waiting to be released as there are for Microsoft. Yeah. But the big story that everyone's wondering about, and we're going to talk about it right off the top, is Switch Pro. The news just keeps piling on for Switch Pro. We keep getting more reports from Bloomberg, more reports from Japan, from publications like Nikkei.
I mean, in the vein of what I just referenced, I do think it's going to be called the Super Nintendo Switch.
Okay, I like that. It makes sense, too, in light of what we just talked about, how it's literally the most successful platform since Super Nintendo for Nintendo. Yep. If you're not counting handhelds, obviously.
Right.
DS,
right. But
GBA.
It was one of the really good things on the Super Nintendo? Metroid.
It was. In fact, one of the greatest games of all time, Super Metroid, was released for...
To the point that... Was it Retro? Somebody they asked to make a Metroid game on the N64 refused because they didn't think they could do anything as good as Super Metroid.
And I would argue on the N64, they were probably right.
Probably correct, yeah.
With that hardware, I do not think was going to pull off a good 3D Metroid game.
I don't remember who that was exactly, but they asked somebody to make a Metroid game, for instance, some team to make a Metroid game, and they're like, we can't. Do that.
They made the right choice.
Yeah, no, absolutely true.
So, Matt, what do you think the chances are that we get finally the unveiling of an upgraded Switch in some form?
I think that's 100%.
100%?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it one way, no matter what.
Okay. I wonder if Pactor still thinks it's not a real thing at this point.
Does he still think that?
I don't know. By the way, we also are doing an E3 predictions episode from Pactor that will be going live late on Friday, just in time for E3. So you'll be able to hear from him himself whether he thinks Switch Pro is going to be shown off or not. He has been fighting it for a long time. I mean, he has pretty good reasons why it doesn't make much sense, but then there's all this reporting to the contrary that just says, sorry, bro, like it's going to happen. Do you think this could be like the product of the show if it is in fact shown?
I mean, if it is, it's only because there's no other competition.
But do you think this hardware revision could overshadow any game that may or may not be shown?
No.
No?
You mean like in terms of like if they show Breath of the Wild 2, would be going to people care more about the Super Switch?
Yeah.
No. People care about games more than hardware.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we do.
I do.
But I don't know about most people.
Most people don't care what they're playing something on. Most people never even buy the revision.
They might this one. if it really finally displays games in 4K.
Yeah, sort of. But like, I think a lot of the people that have a Switch don't care. I do. But like, if it doesn't have a robust bonus to the handheld features, and like the screen matters, screen and battery life would be a big deal. I don't think it's going to make as much of a splash because the people like me who care more about like what it's going to look like on a TV are not the majority of the Switch audience, as many polls have shown.
Yeah.
I appreciate if that is indeed what they're doing with it. Like that will probably get my money. Especially because there's so much, life left in the upcoming library. It's not like they're going to move on to the next gen Switch anytime soon. Unless this is more what they're trying to sell this as. I don't think it's going to be a leap. I don't think there's going to be a generational leap in power or anything. It's just going to be kind of better, which is fine. But I don't think this is going to be that exciting a hardware revision that it would overshadow like, showing Breath of the Wild 2 or Metroid Prime 4.
Nintendo may force people to buy it by just discontinuing the old Switch.
I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think you're going to aim for the same price point as the original Switch, and this would replace that SKU. Yeah. And then the Switch Lite would continue to exist in its current form.
Well, let me ask you this. If Nintendo does announce it and does say that we're discontinuing the old Switch and whatever's out there, once it's gone, and this new one's $400, haha. Then does it become the product of the show?
I don't see why. I mean, product of the show in what regard?
Well, your argument was that it couldn't be product of the show because no one cares because they're not going to buy it. But now if they're forced to buy it and it's the only option.
My argument would be that it's product of the show because there's no other hardware. So who cares? Like it's the product of the show when you have no competition. Like no one else is announcing a handheld or a console. So like of course it's the hardware product of the show. It's the only hardware.
I just think if Adam still worked at his old company Spike Trap, I think the new Switch would be near the top of social media mentions when E3's all said and done.
I mean,
you don't
maybe.
Agree with that?
I mean, I guess, but like it depends what else is announced, and the lack of Sony is going to help, but like. And also, Nintendo stuff always causes buzz because the Nintendo fans never shut up about it. So, it's of course, but they're going to desperately want to throw money at the screen and have Nintendo take it from them as always. But if they also show Breath of the Wild 2 in any kind of robust form, I think people will be more excited about that, or at least be mentioning it in tandem because that's what they're going to want to play on that new Switch. I don't know. Like I would think I still think games would have more cachet. If it was a brand new system, it was like the PlayStation 5 equivalent to the Switch's PlayStation 4, I would be more inclined. But I think this is just going to be an upgrade.
I think it is too, but I think it's also been 4 years, and I think a lot of people may view it as like the next thing.
Might be some. Might help be helped in terms of engagement.
Is it any different than PS5? It's still going to play the old Switch games just like PlayStation 5 does. But all the games are going to be made I'm assuming, going to be made 4K going forward for it. So
well, except they're not because that's more of a hardware trick than the games running in actual 4K. It's a Pro, like we said, it's a Pro. It's not the PS5, it's the PS4 Pro, and that is not a world-shaking announcement. Okay. It's more of a world-shaking announcement when it's Nintendo because everybody freaks out when Nintendo does anything. The price point might cause more engagement if people think it's too expensive. $400 is a lot of money for that.
Yeah.
Especially because only $100 away from the other next gen systems.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you could either spend $400 on that.
Actually, let's talk about that right now. What do you think it's going to be priced at?
I mean, $400 doesn't seem impossible.
It makes perfect sense to me. It's
Yeah,
better
number
than
keeps flying around in all the leaks and all the speculation. It seems to be sort of what the world of the gaming press has settled on.
It makes perfect sense to me. It's in between the original Switch and Gen 9 consoles. It's an upgrade over the old Switch, so you can rationalize inside your mind paying more for it. Well, this is 4K, so that's $100.
It gives you room for a price drop over the next couple of years to replace the Switch SKU as those disappear from shelves.
Yep.
It makes the Switch Lite look like even more of a bargain. I mean, it matches the hardware that's rumored to be in it. Like it's, $400 seems like it's probably the price point.
Yep.
Nintendo isn't one to give you a break on hardware prices because they like to make money on their hardware.
Yeah.
$350 would probably be something you could get away with if you're willing to sell it at a loss, but Nintendo doesn't generally do that.
Nope.
The other question becomes like, did they fix the fucking Joy-Cons?
I don't think they can, Matt. I just don't think they can.
Maybe not.
If they could, they would have already. I'm about ready to send in my Joy-Con again. Like, I've just started playing with the Pro Controller all the time now. So
yeah.
It sucks.
I've always done that.
I like the Joy-Cons. I like them a lot.
Yeah, as far as I know, my Joy-Cons might be like completely sideways by now, but I'll never know because I'll never touch them. So I guess
the Pro Controller is nice. It's a really good controller.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I love it.
So you segued nicely to what we're going to discuss next, which is Breath of the Wild 2, a big X factor for this year. Since the beginning of the year, I drafted it on my fantasy team. Took a risk, honestly. Like, I was probably 50-50 on whether it was going to come out this year or not when I drafted it. I figured it was worth the risk because if it does come out, it's probably going to get like a 9.5 or close to a 10. So it was worth the risk for me. I didn't count on it coming out this year. Do you still think it's not coming this year, Matt?
Oh, of course not.
Yeah.
Not a chance in hell.
Do you think it's the game that's blown out the most at E3 by Nintendo, though?
It makes the most sense. I mean, either that or I guess one of the Pokemon things. But in terms of like kind of this makes a lot of sense as the show closer to me.
Yeah.
As the just one more thing and oops, now we're going to show you 15 minutes of this game.
So you think they'll show gameplay in the direct? What I tend to think is they'll show a trailer at the end, unless it's the whole press conference is going to be bookended by Switch Pro and Zelda. So take your pick, which one goes first and which one goes last. But if you
you start with the hardware and you end with Zelda.
Yeah.
That tends to be their thing. Look, let's be honest, like showing the new hardware is not as exciting as showing the new Zelda.
What if they show the new hardware running the new Zelda?
They won't do that because there's no way to differentiate on a stream like the visual difference you're going to see. Like that's the problem that this Switch has is that like the differentiation between something running at like full, simulated 4K or upscaled 4K or whatever, like you can't really show that on the stream. Like it's a meaningful difference, but it's a subtle one, and it's hard to get across on a stream that you don't know what kind of bit rate people are going to be watching it at. So it's better to just show Zelda. And like, you can say something like, oh, it's going to run at 60 on the new system or whatever in 4K. You can say that, but you're not going to be able to really illustrate it very well in the format where where you're, the downside of having to do things remotely or as a direct. If you're doing that on a screen in a real theater, like that would be a bigger difference. But I just don't think you can illustrate that well enough. At least not. I mean, you might have some like breakout stuff on the Treehouse streams afterwards.
That was my next question. Do you think they're going to blow it out and play an hour of it?
I think they might do that, and they could do like YouTube stuff, like YouTube videos. You can definitely put up something of high enough resolution to show the difference. Like Digital Foundry does all the time.
Yep.
You could let Digital Foundry touch it and do their own thing about it. Like whatever. I'm sure they'll analyze everything anyway. But I think that is a harder sell to say like, oh, I'm sure you'll get a little bullet point about it in the Zelda demonstration, but like, I don't think that's going to be a focus unless there is a Breath of the Wild specific model of the new Switch that is also probably not a bad bet. Like there will be a Zelda themed version of the new Switch that comes out with the game.
The Abram brings up a good point in chat. He says, with DLSS, it could be a bigger leap than you expect. So maybe showing Zelda could make an impact running with DLSS. So
maybe. I understand the tech there. I don't think it's gonna be that. Like it could be, but I don't think the hardware Nintendo's gonna be willing to put in this thing for the amount of money they're willing to spend versus what they're going to charge is going to be able to make that much of a leap.
I think Zelda in particular, because it's flat shaded, I don't know that DLSS does a lot for that game in particular, but we'll see. I think we're both in agreement that we're going to see a good bit of Zelda, and we're going to see Switch Pro.
Honestly, and I don't want to let my bias show here, but like honestly, if I was going to pick a game that could really try to make the that shine, it'd be Metroid.
Yeah.
Like I think the environments you expect in a Metroid Prime game would benefit a lot from that tech.
Yep, we'll get to Metroid. Let's start talking about some of the games here other than Breath of the Wild 2. Skyward Sword HD looks like it's going to be the bone that Nintendo is going to throw to us for the anniversary of Zelda instead of Breath of the Wild 2.
And what a bone.
Yeah. I mean, look, they are doing a lot of things to try to improve the game from its original state, but as one of my least favorite 3D Zelda games...
Yeah, I'll go. It is the worst 3D Zelda game. I have almost no interest in playing this game again.
I mean, I know.
I mean, I dislike the DS ones more. I don't like Phantom Hourglass is my pick for the worst Zelda game of all time. Not counting the CDI ones because who the hell cares? Phantom Hourglass I physically despise. I do not feel that way, but I don't hate Skyward Sword. I just don't have any affinity for it.
Well, I know I'm going to say something that's going to piss off a lot of Zelda fans, but I'm just being honest with you. I'm not a big fan of Majora's Mask.
Neither am I.
I didn't enjoy that game all that much, to be honest with you. I would put that in the same class for me as Skyward Sword for different reasons. I didn't like the constraints on the player in Majora's Mask. I didn't like that the motion controls didn't work as intended in Skyward Sword, and there's a bunch of other stuff in Skyward Sword that I had issues with as well.
Yeah, I'm not a Majora's fan. I don't like Zelda with a time limit, which is also why I hate Phantom Hourglass because you have to go to the
kind of the same deal. Yeah,
I just think Majora had a more interesting visual style, but no, I actually kind of actively dislike Majora's Mask because of the change of the formula, and I understand that. I understand why people like it because it changes things up and it's different. It is the exact opposite of what I want from a Zelda.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I was not a big fan when it came out. I'm still not. I've tried to play it again at least 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
I've never finished it. I've never finished Majora's Mask.
I've never finished that either. I got pretty far in it on the 3DS remake.
Yeah,
which I did think was a big improvement.
Yeah,
but it still did not grab me. But I would still rank it above Skyward Sword.
Yep.
Skyward Sword is an empty game to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, let's
give me something else. It's a really I understand it's sort of like next in line for the HD treatment in the Zelda series for them, but I really would have preferred hell. Give me a Link Between Worlds upscaled to the Switch or something, like anything.
Yep, I hear you. Let's get away from Zelda for a minute. Let's talk about some Pokemans. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl.
Pokemon, let me show you them.
Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remake on the way. Matt, are you excited for this at all?
Yeah.
Like
Diamond and Pearl were a little past my playing Pokemon era, but I like the idea of keeping the series, updated and playable on modern hardware.
Yeah, it feels like it's something that has to be done. So yeah, why not?
And there's a whole generation of kids that was their Pokemon, and they're going to be really happy to play this in a new modern fashion, same way I was to play, the remake of Red and Blue, whatever that was.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is a trend they should keep rolling with. Like I think it's a parallel thing of like new games coming out alongside in the off years you got like remakes of the classic stuff. I think that's a good way to keep it moving forward, and they should probably do the same thing to Gold and Silver.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I would argue that this is probably one of the first party games coming from Nintendo in the near future. This is definitely low on the ladder for me as far as my interest.
Yeah, it's not like something I intend to devote a lot of my time to, but I understand the value of it.
Yep. And it's going to sell like crazy. So I totally understand why Nintendo's doing it. They're just not really doing it for me, is what I'm getting at. Now, the next game, I would argue they are doing for me, and it's kind of the opposite of what they're doing with Diamond and Pearl and all the other remakes, and that is Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think I'm saying that correctly. Probably not. Which is an open world Pokemon.
I think it's Arceus.
Arceus, the hard C?
I think that's a hard C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pokemon Legends Arceus coming to Switch. It is an open world. It's really the Pokemon game that people have been dreaming about for a really, really long time. It's the one we've been asking for a really, really long time. A console Pokemon set in an open world. There were shades of this in the last Pokemon. It was kind of a pseudo open world. There were it felt open, but it was still loading in sections of the world. Now I'll say this, a lot of people have not been happy with this first trailer that we got for the game. It does not look amazing. It also, which is very odd, the frame rate stutters in the trailer. You hardly ever see that anymore. A polished trailer where the frame rate bogs down. But that absolutely happens in this trailer. Matt, what's your hype level for this? Is this the Pokemon game you've always dreamed of?
No, I keep forgetting this is a thing, actually. I don't know. I'll probably play it. I think I'll
definitely play it.
Yeah, I think the idea is interesting, like a Breath of the Wild influenced Pokemon. Maybe. I don't know. Let's see what you do. Sure. But it's not like I'm in line for it right now or anything.
Yeah, I feel like what I had built up in my head for the day when something like this would be announced and how I ultimately reacted to it were two entirely different things. Yeah, because the game just didn't look that good to me.
No, but it's also sort of like, at this point, if you're expecting high fidelity stuff from a Pokemon game, that's on you. This is not their priority. It's very clear they are not here to push the graphical edge. They are not here to make something that looks like it came out of the modern day. They're entirely content to make stuff that looks like it's about 5 years old, and but performs well enough to keep your interest. That's the thing. That's the thing that always irritates me. Sort of about Nintendo stuff in general is because they have stepped back on the hardware power. They're always sort of oh wow, that looks really good for a Mario game.
Yeah,
for a Nintendo game. Mario's never looked better. Almost every other game I've played this year did look better
than Mario.
But it is the
best looking Mario. I'll give you that one. Yeah, I hear you. How much do you think we'll see of that? Because look, the trailer that they showed tons of gameplay already. It wasn't some CG thing. I wouldn't be surprised if the Treehouse blows this one out too.
Yeah, I would think maybe you'll get a little taste in the direct, but I would think this would be a very heavily played Treehouse stream game.
Games like that you need to see played as well.
Yeah.
Because you can't just show some little section of the game and be like, there you go.
Right.
That, I mean, it's that doesn't tell the story.
In the direct, you can get away with the Breath of the Wild flyover shot that that everybody uses now. But the Treehouse seems like the right place for this game to really show why it's different from your normal Pokemon release.
Yep.
Which obviously we know just by looking at it, but I think that's a distinction worth making.
Yep.
And it eats up a lot of time. So there you go. There's free content for you.
Yep.
At that point.
And the games just keep on coming, people. We're only halfway through what Nintendo has to show at E3 without any surprises. There are so many games.
Yeah, it's going to be a long show if this keeps up.
It's only 40 minutes. I mean, you mean our show.
Yeah. Our show.
When we start getting to the third parties, there's a lot less. The big platform guys have a lot to cover. Next up, Splatoon 3. What do you think we're going to see of that? First gameplay, legit gameplay of that, probably?
Probably. It's about time.
The first trailer, we're not even showing that to you now. We're showing you Splatoon 2. But the first trailer was basically just a CG piece. And there was very quick cuts of some in-game stuff. So there's a lot to reveal on this. But my feeling is there probably isn't that much to reveal. It's probably going to be the same game with new maps.
Yeah, this is not... They don't need to reinvent the wheel on this one.
I would like to see a little innovation because I really didn't see hardly any of it in Splatoon 2, to be perfectly honest.
I feel like you're going to stay disappointed on that. Yeah. I think they might beef up the campaign mode a little bit.
I would like to see that because the campaign now is just kind of these goofy missions with no narrative really holding it together.
Yeah. Well, it was added after the fact, so maybe now that people have such an investment, the fan base has a big investment in the world and the characters. I think in a way that maybe they didn't expect from a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they'll lean into that in this one a little more. We'll see. I don't care about Splatoon at all. So I still play Splatoon 2 multiplayer. When I just have a couple minutes here and there. It's just different still from anything else. So I still do play it. Will I get into Splatoon 3? Probably so. If there are new maps, I'm in. Because if it is just Splatoon 2 with new maps, I recommend people buy it. That's a different story. Nintendo's going to send me a code. I'm not going to have to pay for it.
and therefore I will play it. Will I recommend people spend $60 on it? That'll be a different story that we'll tackle when the game is here. But I do expect probably to see first gameplay if there is any innovation. I think they'll announce that at E3. I do not expect this game until next year, though.
Probably not, no.
Yep. Next up, a game that was shown and has been MIA for a really long time, Bayonetta 3. Does it show up, Matt?
Maybe.
I know Platinum
also,
recently commented, like, yeah, we're still going, but...
Who knows? I like that in the rundown you have misspelled that Bey.
Yeah, I noticed it too.
Which makes me think of Beyonce in Bayonetta 3. I'm like, oh, that would be amazing. Like, I'm like Beyonce playing Bayonetta
3.
B-A-E. Yeah, let's
That's funny.
Call some agents, because I think we got a movie pitch.
That might finally convince Nintendo to release this damn thing and for Platinum to finally finish the game. That's all we got. That little trailer you just saw, that's all we've had for like 3 or 4 years. Years. Yeah. Like, what is the holdup on this thing? Maybe they're just like, you think it's going to be released still, Matt?
Maybe they've gone like so far beyond it that only the Super Nintendo Switch can handle it.
It may be right. It may be true. And that actually segues nicely to the next game, which is, you just mentioned, maybe kind of the feature for the Switch Pro, which is Metroid Prime 4. What do you think we're going to see of this, Matt?
I mean, I won't be surprised if we see jack fucking shit.
I wouldn't be surprised either, but I am expecting to see something.
I would like to see something because it is Metroid's anniversary and we've been waiting for this damn game. And I know they started over, but like, throw me a bone. Like, I don't care. Like something, like whatever, some kind of thing. Apparently the trilogy remaster is not going to happen. So
I'm surprised that our TriCaster doesn't throw up an error when we run that trailer at this point, saying like, move the F on.
Like, I'm tired of playing this. Like the silicon chips have burn in from playing the same file over and over again.
Exactly. I think we will see something.
I hope so.
I think it'll just be like a polished trailer that kind of sets up the story and the concept behind the game. Right. I don't think we'll see any
we had a
stuff.
Logo. We got a logo like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That was it.
So I think we'll see something from the game. And that would probably be the middle of the press conference to kind of keep things rolling, keep things exciting. Kind of the midpoint between Switch Pro and Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, they'll throw that in there right before they show the 35th anniversary Metroid celebration of putting Samus's helmet in Animal Crossing.
Well, Matt, there are rumors that there's going to be a 2D Metroid that is going to be released this year to celebrate the anniversary.
I mean, I've speculated on that because Mercury Steam's been awful quiet since they did that Metroid 2 remake. It seems like it would be about time to do something.
What if they did a Super Metroid remake for Switch?
No, I don't think anybody would be crazy enough to do that.
Why?
Why would you fuck with perfection?
Because you can make money off perfection.
But they've already got Super Metroid in the Super Nintendo, virtual console, whatever thing.
They can make it look a lot better. I mean,
but they wouldn't, because they're just going to do a new one. If you do that, you do a new one. You don't try to redo Super Metroid. You don't touch Super Metroid. I'll bet you cash money on that.
I understand the sentiment behind it, but I also would not be surprised if Super Metroid Remake is shown.
If they were planning that, they would not have put Super Metroid in the Super Nintendo Virtual Console thing.
I don't know about that. We'll see.
There is 0% chance that Super Metroid is this thing.
So if there is a 2D Metroid that comes out this year, you think it'll be a brand new game and not something that's reworked?
I think it'll be a new thing.
Okay.
For better or worse.
My bet, and a lot of it is just my hope, is that it's Super Metroid. I would not be offended if they remade Super Metroid. And I'm like you, I literally think it's one of the 5 best video games ever made. But I would not be offended if they remade it.
I'd be offended. It would just be boring. Like, it's like, I can just go play Super Metroid. Give me new Metroid. I haven't had a new Metroid game in how long?
Yeah, a long time.
Like Other M?
Yeah.
How long since it's been?
And a lot of people just want to forget that, so.
Right. Like, I mean, I was in my 20s the last time a good Metroid game came out.
I know. It's insane. I mean, a lot of people were like 5.
Yeah. Some people that didn't exist yet.
Think about it. It's pretty crazy. All right, and we do have a lot more games to get through with Nintendo. We're going to start going through these.
But our luck is just going to be like an up-res of like Zero Mission and Fusion.
Yep. It's possible. Next up, Shin Megami Tensei 5, another game that was announced literally on the day the Switch was announced, and we still Haven't really seen much from the game. There's like 2 trailers for it at this point.
Although there's rumors of actual release dates this year.
Like this year, yeah. So I suspect that we will see a new trailer for this, and I don't believe that like Atlas is doing anything at E3, so I would not be surprised if Atlas shows up to demo this game at the Treehouse. Could
be. I mean, that's a demo.
No boy, they want to put that one on late at night. Yeah,
you want to do put it. That's a good dinner time.
You bring up a good point, which may actually keep it from being a part of the Treehouse stream. The subject matter of this franchise doesn't really fit in with like a bunch of 8-year-olds watching the Treehouse demos.
Well, also like just the pace of it. It's a slow game, so
you have to show it on Treehouse.
Show
really,
something, but I mean, you probably maybe don't show Mara. But you got to pick your monsters. But maybe, I mean, I don't know. I like the Shin Megami Tensei games, but it's telling that I forgot to play the Nocturne remake.
Yeah, it just came out.
This maybe, I don't know if it's something. I'm more of there's a time when I would have said I preferred Persona, but I don't really even like those anymore. So I don't know. Maybe I just fell out of the Shin Megami Tensei thing. You may come to the
end of your JRPG rope, Matt.
I don't know my JRPG rope, but I'm definitely at the end of my Shin Megami Tensei rope at this point, maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
The games are so huge. They're such a commitment. It's like, once you finish one, like I played Persona and finished it, and I'm like, I'm good. Like, I don't know what I need to play another one of these.
Especially like the core series, the core Shin Megami Tensei series is like, that or Pokemon. I'm going to have to pick one. Because they're kind of equivalent.
It'll take over your life for like a month.
Yeah.
Yep. But I do think we'll see something from it, particularly if it is coming out this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a guarantee in one form or another.
Yep. And look, I'm guessing they're going to show Mario Golf Super Rush because it's about to come out. They're going to show Disgaea 6 because it's about to come out. Then there's Monster Hunter Stories 2, which is kind of like the more kid-friendly, story-driven take on Monster Hunter. I think, honestly, I may like this better than Monster Hunter Rise.
Did the first one ever come here?
Yeah, it did eventually. Yeah. But it was just a 3DS game. It didn't come out for consoles. And this one's obviously coming out for Switch. I think people might be surprised at how good this is, although, after playing through the campaign in Monster Hunter Rise, my expectations definitely went down because the storytelling in Rise is just so bad. Just the writing and the voiceover and the premise of it. It was just so simple. And I know this is a different team, and I know the first game was way more story-driven than a typical Monster Hunter game is. But I just can see it being full of all kinds of these moments where I'm just like rolling my eyes. So it may do well financially. Rise is doing amazing financially. It's like selling gangbusters. But am I all that excited to learn more about it or actually play it? Probably not. But it probably will have a nice little section because it should also be very close to release. And then the final piece of Nintendo's puzzle at E3 2021 is No More Heroes 3, which I'll be honest with you, after I saw the latest trailer for it, my interest in it really fell through the floor. I'm not all that excited about it. It just looks janky.
I think there was a time for this series, and the time is maybe past.
Yeah, I'm not, and I feel like they've cheapened the franchise a little bit with what they've done with kind of the spin-offs recently, and I'm not as excited for it as I feel like I should be, or maybe would have been.
Well, I mean, look, I didn't like 2 at all.
Neither. So, yeah. And the first one, it wasn't a great game, but it had a charm to it.
There was a verve to it. I appreciated it, and now I feel it's sort of like a Deadly Premonition 2. It's like, okay, now you're trying too hard.
Yeah.
To be like a weird, offbeat, janky thing. Like it's like it's like how they say like you can't intentionally make a campy movie.
Yeah, it has to just happen.
It has to just happen. Like you can't intentionally make The Room.
Yeah. I hear you. That's true. Yep. And it's probably the same way for games. So Yep. So there you go. That's Nintendo at E3 2021. That's just what we know.
I think you're missing something there.
What? Am I missing something?
I think there might be a Mario Kart in there somewhere.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask, do you think there's something that shockingly, and I mentioned this actually last episode or the episode before that, that Mario Kart is due. That would bring the house down. And if maybe they show that with the upgraded Switch instead, because that could maybe make a bigger impact. But I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I would not be surprised if we get a new Mario Kart at E3.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't be surprised if it comes out in Q4.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been people that were kind of like, oh, Mario Kart 8's not done selling yet, like still sells well. I'm like, yeah, but like at some point,
you gotta turn the page.
You gotta move on, right? Yeah. It's like,
although maybe Rockstar.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can't all be Rockstar.
Yeah, because it needs to learn that lesson as well. But yeah, I would not be surprised.
They could probably get away with just having Mario Kart 8 add a few racers and a Super Nintendo Switch mode.
And call it like Mario Kart 8 4K or something.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition Super
4K mode.
Super Deluxe Edition. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I would not be surprised as well if Mario Kart is there. But anyway, we'll get to some predictions about Nintendo.
Super Deluxe Edition 4K Circuit.
Yeah.
You can have that one for free.
Yep. We'll get into some predictions for Nintendo and a bunch of other stuff at the end of the show. Let's move on. Let's talk about Square Enix, another publisher that's kind of teetering right on the edge of really having a viable E3 press conference, to be perfectly honest with you. They're not looking much better than Ubisoft. In fact, maybe a little worse, to be perfectly honest. Final Fantasy 16, that was announced as a PS5 exclusive. My guess is they show the first raw gameplay from that, and it'll probably be the biggest crux of their press event. You think that's probably safe, Matt?
Yeah, unless they decide to show 7 too. But I feel like that's a ways out.
Yeah, you mean episode 2 of the 7 remake? Yeah.
Part 2 of the 7
remake. Because
Intergrade,
do you think they'll focus on that a lot because it's coming out real soon?
God, I hope not.
I bet they'd show it at least, though.
They might show something of it, or at least remind you it exists.
Yep.
But I don't know, it would be nice to have a little bit of information on Solid. I don't care. I hated that game. But I feel like the people who are invested in 7 deserve a little information about when they might get to play the next part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're probably going to get that, but I feel like it would be polite to tell the people that are now about to buy your stupid, terrible game twice when they're going to get to play part 2 of your completely unnecessary multi-part remake. But instead, I think you're right. They're just going to sort of tease 16 and call it a day.
Yeah. And then there's a rumored new game from Eidos Montreal that's supposed to be shown. That's really the only kind of rumors that have bubbled up.
I mean, isn't that? Well, I guess not. Is it them? Who the hell is working on the Guardians of the Galaxy game?
I don't know.
Isn't it them?
I think I remember that being the case. So maybe that is what they showed. That would actually help with the lineup that they have as of right now.
Yeah.
That would be a huge boost to it. I think everybody would be excited to check that out. Guardians of the Galaxy seems to be one of those IP that everybody loves. Mm-hmm. Like, I've never met someone that was like, I just really hated that movie, or I hated the characters in that. Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You shouldn't hang out with them anymore, Matt.
I see him once in a while. But he's a giant DC fan. That's part of it. And he hates all of Marvel's stupid little jokes, even though I'm like, the humor in that is kind of different from the other Marvel movies because it's all James Gunn, not really Marvel stuff.
Much edgier, for sure.
Yeah, but also, I don't know.
He's a DC fan. That's all you had to say.
He is. He doesn't like the Snyder stuff, but he does think Aquaman's the best superhero movie ever made.
Oh my God! Well, that puts it all in perspective, doesn't it?
I think he was just there to see Momoa's abs. If I'm being honest, okay. I think that's what he was in for. But, all right. I can at least respect that Aquaman showed me things I've never seen before, even if I wasn't particularly enthralled by it overall. But yeah, so I know one person who hated Guardians of the Galaxy, but that is a very, very rare bird.
If that is shown, we could come out of E3 with that being like top 10 most hyped games for E3.
Also, he doesn't play video games, so he doesn't matter here.
There you go.
He's not a lost sale for Square Enix here.
Okay. Next up, here's another game that's kind of been shown, and we haven't really seen anything concrete on it. Babylon's.
Yeah, forgot about this one.
Babylon's Fall. Like, what the heck has happened with this game? There's 2 trailers for it.
Seems to have fallen.
Yes, it does seem to have fallen.
Off the map.
If I also remember correctly, I think this trailer throws up copyright problems on YouTube, so maybe I shouldn't show it. It's weird how, Square Enix, some of their stuff does and some of it doesn't. This one, if I remember correctly, did, but we'll see. A hack and slash. I don't know if this is even actually an action RPG. but it's a character action game, Matt, which is kind of like this new subgenre that people have coined these games, like Devil May Cry and Scarlet Nexus.
Is it just me, or like the new attempts at new subgenre names, like the dumbest things? It's like character action. What the hell does that tell me?
Yeah, it doesn't really tell you anything.
Or like immersive sim. That's the least helpful description of something I've ever heard. And I've heard people in like YouTube people trying to insist that the name for the genre that like Metroid and Castlevania belong to is search action. Fuck you. Like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
We have a word for that, and it's called Metroidvania.
Yeah. Babylon's Fall in particular, I really struggle to find anything unique about it.
No,
there's no hook. It's like Astral Chain had the Astral Chain, where you literally like had shit chained together and used it to do combos.
Right.
This is really just
Scarlet. What was that? The thing we just talked about last week?
Scarlet? It has like the ESP stuff and the telekinesis. Stuff. It has a hook.
At people and shit.
This has nothing. It's just literally like Devil May Cry, but not Devil May Cry.
Right.
I really struggle to see anything unique.
It's very much like Dante with the serial number filed off.
Yeah. But most of them do have something unique about them.
Yeah, there's usually a hook. There's usually like, we took this idea and we did this with it.
Even Scarlet Nexus looks really generic at first, and then you actually play it and you're like, oh, wow, there's actually a hook in this game. There's something that it does differently.
Because that's kind of what Platinum's bread and butter is. Is like, we're going to take this concept, this base genre, and we're going to put a little twist on it.
Yep.
And sort of whether you like the game or not is going to depend on whether you like that twist or not. But like, they don't make the same thing again.
Yep.
And that seems to have been sort of the thing that everybody's followed, is like Platinum sort of like established as like, okay, you're going to make a Devil May Cry style game. You gotta have a hook. You gotta have something. Even if the hook is a literal hook that you're pulling people in with.
That's something though.
Like, something. Yeah. And this one just doesn't. It just seems to be another one.
Yeah. I'm not very excited for it at all. It also, and it looks like one of those games that you end up finding out got canceled.
Yes.
Where you're like, wow, they put out all these trailers for it, and then they canceled it. Like, this
or
is...
Or it's like, oh, they canceled it. They canceled what? Oh, that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. At least in Dragon's Dog, or what was that game that the other one that was canceled for Xbox?
Deep something?
Yeah. At least those games, at least, like... They didn't put out a ton of media for them, and Down Deep. What happened to that? That game just disappeared. Deep Down, I guess, is what it was. Yeah.
Deep Down. That's Yeah.
Where'd that go?
I don't know. I think that's buried in the same unmarked grave as Scalebound.
It could be. It absolutely could be. Let's see. Next up, Life is Strange: True Colors. Mm-hmm. Do you still care about Life is Strange at this point, Matt?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I care less when it's not Don't Nod. But
they've kind of farmed this out now.
Yeah, this looks interesting. Like I'm gonna play it. I liked the first one. I liked Volume 2. I like the second. I like Life is Strange 2. I'll give this one a shot. I like the idea. I like the concept here. Like the take. This series' take on superpowers is interesting to me. Like I like the way they make them a little more mundane, but they tell stories that couldn't be told without them. Like that's
I think they're a little more believable than some of the real superhero story or backstories where you're like, oh, that's how they got their powers on. Like this one at least seems a little more plausible.
And I'm really interested in kind of the world they're building with it.
Yeah.
Because they're all in continuity with each other one way or the other. I'm sure some characters from the other games will pop up in this one somewhere. Mm-hmm. I like that. It's kind of creating this weird little cinematic universe of like very understated teen angst. Like but like I've liked both of those. I didn't like Before the Storm too much, but in general, I think Life is Strange has been more of a hit than a miss. So I'm in.
Yep, I'm into.
I'm in for that. I'm in for the remastered collection. I'll play Life is Strange 1 again.
This is one franchise that's never like offended me with its writing or its characters.
No, it's pretty solid. Like there's some ups and downs in places, but I think for the most part they generally feel like real people.
I wish they would get rid of the episodic release for this stuff, though.
Yeah, I do just wait until they're all out and just play them all in one big chunk.
I used to try to go one by one, but then I would just find I hardly remembered what happened in the prior games. They always do like the little recap, but it's always literally like
the recap,
15
so,
seconds.
There's also moments where I was like, why did I choose that?
Yeah.
I think about it later. I'm just like, oh, that was not the right thing to do. I'm like, I prefer to play them in one big go.
Yep. And then the last thing that we know for sure that will be shown at this press conference is Marvel's Avengers Black Panther War for Wakanda, which is coming to a game that is essentially failed. Do you think this has a chance of reinvigorating the game at all?
I would think
I know
not.
people really love Black Panther, but...
Oh, Black Panther, yeah, sure. But it's like Black Panther... First off, I thought he was supposed to be out like 9 months ago.
I mean, that's the story of this game in general.
Yeah. Second, like I just don't know how much you can bend the formula this game allows you to work within to make something interesting with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this game can do one thing, and without being able to change, without basically being able to rewrite it from the ground up, I don't see how you're going to change that unless this expansion is as narrative focused and as long and involved as the campaign that came with the game. At least that would be them recognizing where their strength is.
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe, but stranger things have happened. Life is strange after all. I don't know. Like Black Panther would be a good attempt to save it. Certainly more than the other characters.
I'll say this: if he can't do it, nothing is going to.
Pretty much, yeah. Black Panther's their last
shot. The last chance.
I don't think Spider-Man's exclusive to PlayStation, so that doesn't help you on the other platforms. I don't know. Like, I guess Captain Marvel is probably going to be the continuation of the Kree element that was kind of introduced near the end of the campaign. But like, I don't think people are going to line up to play a Kree invasion thing. I don't know. Also,
there's no way they are.
No, we'll see what this War for Wakanda thing turns out to be. Like there's been some casting news coming out of the sequel to the movie where they got Namor. Sounds like they got Namor in it.
That's good.
The Submariner, the king of Atlantis. The war between Wakanda and Atlantis was always my pick for what they would do for a sequel to Black Panther, which is it's a cool thing. But if that is what this is, that could be interesting. Like Atlantis versus Wakanda. Like I don't know what else the war for Wakanda would be, but I guess you could do some kind of annoying thing with Claw or something. I don't know. I hope it's an ambitious attempt because otherwise, if it's just another thing like the Hawkeye thing, you're not going to get anybody to pay attention to it. Even though the Hawkeye's little mini campaign was actually pretty good.
Yep. To wrap up Square Enix, there is that Final Fantasy Origin game that the rumors have been making the rounds. You think we'll see that?
Maybe. I don't know.
Another PS5 exclusive. Square Enix seems to just be all in on PS5 at this point. And then finally,
for sure.
Do you think we'll see a new Tomb Raider?
I don't.
It's kind of due.
It is a little due, but I think we probably will. I would like to. I feel like Crystal Dynamics is probably still kind of all hands on deck on Avengers, though.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like they did do, the upgrades on Series X for Shadow and the original Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. The frame rate boost thing. Mm-hmm. So they have kind of kept it bubbling there a little bit. And I could go the opposite way, and like Crystal Dynamics and Square want to move on from the Avengers thing, and be like, hey, we've got this coming, so don't freak out. Crystal Dynamics is still working on the thing you like that they do. Yeah. So they could go that way with it. But also, similar to Assassin's Creed, this would be unusual in that we haven't had it leaked already.
And what about the Eidos Montreal game? Could it be Tomb Raider?
I think that's Guardians.
We mentioned that, but could it be Tomb Raider instead?
I guess it could be, but I don't know why you'd take Tomb Raider away from Crystal Dynamics.
I don't either, but especially after what happened with Avengers.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a surer bet in gaming be a bigger flop? Like, how can you screw up Marvel's Avengers to make it so people don't care about it? Literally, like the biggest pop culture IP on planet Earth.
I mean, to be fair, like that used to be sort of the rule for licensed stuff.
Yeah, you're right. We've actually kind of got out of that of late, and now we're going back to the old THQ days.
Yeah, this is like when everything that Marvel related was like licensed by Acclaim and LJN.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a chance we see Tomb Raider. It's hard for me to imagine that Square Enix would allow it to be gone for that long. Like, I don't think it's going to be like released this year or anything.
No, but it's kind of worth reminding people that it's there.
Yeah.
The only caveat to that would be that they are working on the sequel to the movie.
Yep.
And maybe they would find it more synergistic to announce the new game alongside the rise of the hype cycle for that.
Yeah,
that's the only other thing I can think of.
Yeah,
I would like to see it. I would like to see a new Tomb Raider, at least a promise of it.
Yeah, Gen 9 Tomb Raider. I want to see it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe she could be the Tomb Raider now. Are we done with that?
Are we at that point now? Have we reestablished her as the Tomb Raider at this point?
Because that would be. I like the Lara Croft in the reboot series, but I'm kind of ready for her to be a slightly older,
savvy,
snarkier.
Yeah.
She had a mouth on her in the original games, and sort of she had a kind of a world weary, seen it all sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of ready for her to be that again.
Yeah.
Like
we just spent 3 games turning her back into that, so I think we're ready. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think those 3 games were more than enough to turn her into the cynical version of herself that she was in the old games. So I would like to see that come back.
Yep. All right, so that's Square Enix. Not a huge lineup. I think there's some mystery in there, though. There could be some stuff shown that maybe we don't expect, which for me always makes it exciting. And we will be covering that press conference live during our E3 coverage. Let's move on to another Japanese publisher, Capcom. I think of everyone we're covering, it probably has the least of interest at this point. Capcom hasn't announced really much of anything. There's a bunch of franchises that have just been sitting there unused. Capcom has kind of just turned into like Resident Evil LLC at this point.
Yeah, also Monster Hunter LLC.
And Monster Hunter. Yeah, it floats the bills in between the Resident Evil projects. Matt, what do you expect on the Resident Evil front? Do you think we're going to see some Village DLC maybe?
Yeah, I would think so. Probably focusing on Lady Dimitrescu because she is certainly the breakout star of that game.
Like an origin story of hers or something?
Origin story or like where you I don't know where you play as her, but maybe if you play as like one of the daughters doing stuff like tracking people down in the mansion or something.
Idea. I like that.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was something that like involves Lady Dimitrescu again. I think is going to be and maybe like a in the Mercenaries thing.
I think that's a given. They'll add new maps to Mercenaries. Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
Just doubling and tripling down on the surprise breakout hit that is this character.
Yeah. And the game appears to have been doing very well at retail as well. And they have obviously supported the last Resident Evil with, I think, 3 pieces of DLC, if I remember correctly.
I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, they don't bail on their games that are successful. They're still supporting Monster Hunter World. So let's see. So Resident Evil Village DLC, we already talked about Monster Hunter Stories 2. We don't need to come back to that. Monster Hunter Rise, however, I think we'll probably be seeing DLC for that. That game has been a huge success. They'd be silly not to release DLC. They've already, I think, released some small stuff. But that game, just like World, is going to be relevant and live on for years from now.
It would make sense to have some kind of like Iceborne equivalent.
Yeah, even if it's not like coming soon, just putting that carrot on the end of the stick to keep people who are playing it engaged and interested in it. I think that might be a smart thing, and I think it's probably a given that they'll focus on it at least a little bit based upon how successful it's been so far. Matt, what do you think about Dragon's Dogma 2?
I mean, I really like Dragon's Dogma. It's like the Monster Hunter equivalent I actually enjoyed because it didn't feel like it was constantly being played underwater. I have actually replayed Dragon's Dogma 4 times.
Wow.
So I probably put like close to 300 hours into that game across all platforms. Wow. I really like Dragon's Dogma. I would love to see a Dragon's Dogma 2. I remain skeptical that it will ever happen, but Capcom has done weirder things. But like kind of the lukewarm reception of that online only one they did a few years ago in Asia is feels like it's kind of not a great omen. I'd love to see it, but I will believe it when I see it, I guess would be how I'd put it.
Yep. it's just a wishful thinking. I included
Yeah.
it just because
If you have not played Dragon's
a
Dogma,
man can dream.
yeah, if you have not played Dragon's Dogma, pick up the Dark Awakening one on a modern platform when it's like $5 in the sale or something. It's a lot of fun. It's some janky ass, tons of fun. Like it's sort of like State of Decay. It's like tons of ambition. They didn't quite get there, but they got close enough, and it's sort of like charming in that way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun stuff to do in it, and like you feel if you play a magic character in that, you are a god by the end of that game. You are literally summoning meteors from the sky to destroy dragons. It's ridiculous. It's great.
Yeah, I'd put the percentage of seeing a sequel to that at about 20%.
Yeah, that seems like about right.
Yep. Next up, a game some people may have forgot, Pragmata, which...
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me what that is.
I guess the best way I could describe it, it's almost like BioShock, but you play as like the big daddy and the little sister. And it's set in like the near future instead of being set in some far-flung place like the BioShock series.
Okay, I vaguely have a recollection of that.
Yeah, it's like
now.
the spaceman and the little girl, and like a big part of the first trailer is like they're on the moon looking at Earth. Like,
yeah,
I honestly don't think most people still know what it is.
No, I remember it now that you say that. But like, was that a Game Awards thing?
Maybe. I don't remember, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember. No, I can picture it in my head now that you say about watching from the moon. I remember that now, yeah.
It's a very curious game that's really shrouded in mystery still to this point. But I would guess this is the perfect opportunity for them to at least finally tell people what the hell it is.
Yeah.
Because the trailer, the media that they've released for it so far, and the information that they've given up on it so far has been very vague. It looks interesting. It's like in this world where there's like virtual everything. Like everything is like augmented reality. It's like the world has ended, and the only thing that still exists are these two creatures or these two beings and augmented reality. I honestly have no idea what's going on, but it is good to see publishers taking risks on unique concepts like this one. So I'm absolutely excited to check it out and see what the story is with it. And I'm also okay with like the first trailer being mysterious and something that's hard for people to understand what the actual game is going to be. It's like Capcom's trying to out Kojima on this one. If we find out at E3 that Kojima is the director on this game, I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense now. I totally get it. But certainly an interesting game and something unique, which I would argue the industry needs more and more of as time goes on. And it appears to be a big budget game as well, not some kind of small team working on this unique concept that Capcom doesn't have a lot of faith in. So I think it looks really interesting. We'll see how much of it that we end up seeing in the show overall. And then really the rest is just Resident Evil 4. What are they going to show? Are they going to show a lot of the Oculus version of Resident Evil 4? Matt, do you think that the Resident Evil 4 remake is now not going to happen because, as it turns out, there was an Oculus game being built?
I think I've heard there was some kind of legal problem with the Oculus one.
Like what?
I can't remember. It was some...
Like it could be canceled legal problems?
Or at least it would be kind of stuck in limbo for a while.
Really? Because they've already worked on it for 4 years.
Yeah. It was. I thought there was something from that.
It's got to be like a licensing of something or a voice actor who hasn't been paid or something like that.
I don't know.
I mean, that game's so old.
But I don't think it's going to be there. I don't think the Oculus game's going to be there.
Okay. Do you think the RE4 remake is still a thing?
Maybe. Like I think it would be silly to do an Oculus one and not a non VR one. Like it's just money on the table right there. But it depends what maybe Oculus, they have a contract with Oculus says they can't release it outside of VR until certain times, but I don't know. I would certainly prefer a non-VR one because I would play the hell out of that.
Yep.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
But I don't think there will be I don't think the Oculus version is going to be there this year.
I honestly don't think that the RE4 remake existed. I think people got word that someone was working on a new version of RE4, and I think they extrapolated it to remake when it was really just the Oculus game. That's my guess.
Chat's saying it's an asset lawsuit from a photographer. They used pictures that were not licensed.
There you go. Well, they can fix that pretty easily. They can swap that stuff out.
Yeah.
But I could see where that may make them not show the game at E3 2021, though, while they're busy trying to fix that stuff, or show parts of the game that don't show those assets. But I do think for right now, the RE4 remake is probably off the table. I think there was just confusion among insiders about what the Oculus game was. I'm not saying it's never coming. I just think that that's maybe a project for next year or something like that. But we'll see. I could be pleasantly surprised. I would be all over a Resident Evil 4 remake. Again, still my favorite Resident Evil of all time. And then there's Resident Evil Outrage, which is like basically Resident Evil Revelations 3. That is kind of a rumor. There's really nothing that's set in
Was
stone.
that just like Leon getting mad at zombies on Twitter?
Maybe. Outrage. So that's something else to maybe keep an eye on.
Can you believe what that liquor posted?
And then
Just
maybe
pictures of his tongue all over the place.
And then maybe the final thing is Street Fighter V. Do you think we'll see that? It's definitely overdue. There was rumors about...
You mean 6?
6, sorry. There was rumors about it.
5's been out for like 5 very painful years.
Yeah. Well, there were rumors about 6 being in beta and people not liking it, and Capcom maybe having to go back to the drawing board. What do you think? What's your barometer on the next Street Fighter?
I don't know. I feel like 5 is finally in a place where people generally like it enough that to start over now would seem suicidal.
Ono-san, boot it off, boot it out.
Yeah, they said they're doing another season of 5. So if 6 is going to happen, it would be next year sometime.
Okay.
Which seems a little premature to start teasing 6 when you still got another season of 5 to sell.
Yeah. And that's it. That's Capcom at E3 2021. As I said, not a huge presence, at least what we know right now, from the Japanese publisher, but we could be surprised. Or Pragmata could just end up being so awesome that we forget about all the other stuff that was not shown. But Capcom's looking a little lean at E3 this year. Next up, you're probably looking at the graphics and being like, Shane, why is PlayStation at E3 2021 in the rundown? Because you've probably realized, like Matt and I have, that there is nothing scheduled for PlayStation at E3 2021. Nothing. Matt, do you think that's a good idea?
I mean, good. I don't think it matters. Like, didn't hurt them last year.
Yeah, I mean, they can't make enough PlayStation 5s to sell them, and they haven't been at E3 for like 3 years. So it's...
And they're doing the same thing they did last year. They showed Last of Us 2 on the exact same days, I think, in May, and then did nothing in June, and then came back in August with another state of play. And they are following that. They showed Horizon on the same days of May as they showed Last of Us 2, and I think they are going to run silent until August. And it's not going to hurt them one bit.
Matt, the question becomes, why is anyone doing E3?
That is a fine question, especially after we had another frickin' security breach through the E3 thing yesterday.
Oh, yeah. So I got my E3 press registration confirmation yesterday morning, I think it was, or maybe the day before. And I'm like, okay, I'm registered as press, and let me see what that does, what that gets me. It gets me nothing. Nothing. There's like some endemic chat app. It's like, why would I use this to chat with people when I could just use 20 different social media platforms that actually work? Like, I don't even understand why they had press register for E3 this year.
Neither do I.
Because they were like, at first they were like, oh, you get exclusive, and then the streams, once the show starts, everyone gets access to it. Like, there's no value in being registered for press other than if you want to keep your stream going, which I did.
I think Sony would say there's no value in being there at all.
Yeah. Do you think others are going to come to that realization ever, Matt?
Absolutely. EA's already there. If you look at, they haven't been there, and now they're doing their presentation a month and a half later. It's not going to hurt anybody. You don't need to be there. It doesn't do you any good.
I'm just going down because there's so much stuff that they could show, although I would argue of the big three, they're probably in third place. But just very quickly, Horizon Forbidden West, which we just saw, they did a big blowout on. God of War Ragnarok, the sequel to that.
Which is pushed to next year.
Which has been pushed to next year.
A long time to worry about that.
The big one to me is PlayStation VR 2.
Nah.
That is hardware. But look, if they launch PS5 without E3, they can launch PlayStation VR too without E3.
And they're going to be next year. I think, sometime next year. If that.
Then there's all the Naughty Dog stuff like Uncharted 5 or a remake of the first Uncharted, The Last of Us remake. That stuff, I don't know. It's all just kind of rumors at this point. I mean, they're more than rumors because they've been...
And the Uncharted stuff sounds like it's going to go to the San Diego team.
Right. Yeah. And then you got Ben working on some of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Gran Turismo 7, I don't even feel like I need to see more of that game. Like, I kind of know what it is and we've got the trailer. We know what it's going to look like. And then there's Forspoken, which is something we probably should have brought up in Square Enix's section since we're not going to do a big deep dive on PlayStation. It was formerly called Project Athia, and they've renamed it. That game is actually, I feel like, the last trailer was pretty interesting. I'm hoping that we do get more of this game at E3 from Square Enix since PlayStation's not going to be there. But again, it's another game that's kind of targeted exclusively for PlayStation consoles. But I feel like what they've shown of that has been interesting and something different, which, again, is something I'm kind of looking for in this day and age in the games industry. And then you have, like, the small stuff like Kenna, Bridge of Spirits, Solar Ash, Little Devil Inside, Stray, that cat game, Jet the Far Shore, which actually looks really awesome. And then you have Ghostwire Tokyo. And that's pretty much all we know about PlayStation stuff right now. What is going to be the vehicle for all this stuff? Are we going to get it piecemeal from now on? We're never going to get this big kind of like information dump from PlayStation again?
No, I mean, they'll do state of plays, I guess, but which can be information dumps if that's what they decide to do with them. They have in the past, or they, like the Horizon Forbidden West can focus on one thing. I would expect to see something in August that sort of focuses on their end of year stuff. So you'd see something, maybe right before, a few weeks before Kena comes out, and then highlighting, maybe a little extra Horizon, maybe confirming that Horizon is going to make it this year or not make it this year. Whatever else makes it this year, probably Stray, I think, should be out this year, I would think. Maybe Solar Ash, that kind of thing.
Does PlayStation start relying on things like the Game Awards for this stuff?
No, they don't rely on anyone but themselves. They don't need to. That's what Sony has realized, and what I was saying two years ago when they stopped going is they don't need it. That's how media works now. You can just say we're doing a live stream at this point and we're going to show you new stuff and people will tune in and the word will spread, and that's how it works. You don't need an event anymore. You don't need to piggyback on E3 or DGS or Jeff Keighley. It's not required. People can directly interface with these companies now. You don't need a separate presenter to bring it to you. You can just show it to people and they will know it's there.
So is all this stuff going away, Matt? Slowly.
I think so. I mean, you've already got Sony absolutely proving that not going to E3 did not hurt them at all in any way. They had the most successful launch of anything they've ever launched, and they were not at E3.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
I wonder if Microsoft looks at it like we had a tough generation and we did go to E3 and people were much more receptive to our next product.
Did they though? They weren't at E3. They did a presentation around the same time, but they don't. They haven't been on the floor in 3 years.
Well, Matt, they're right across the street in their own theater. They're there. I mean, they're at there. E3. They're doing an E3 press conference. They're there.
But they could also do that a week after, a week before, a month before, a month after, and it would be the same thing.
I mean, I'm just wondering if they don't feel that way, if they feel like being a part of E3 did help the series consoles because look, they had a rough last gen, man.
I don't see what happened at E3 last year that would have made them believe that. That they couldn't get the same
There's more eyeballs on it versus, doing a direct style thing.
Are there?
I would argue there are more eyeballs on E3 than you would get if you just did a direct, for sure.
Last year?
I think you'll get the same core people, but I think your chances of getting some more casual folks to at least give it a look is higher at E3.
But that comes with the advertising run up to the launch more than E3. I don't think it matters anymore. And I think we've seen over and over that it doesn't matter at this point. And at the very least, it should be a fairly simple thing if these companies feel they should have a big event of that kind. it should be a fairly simple thing to get together and organize that on their own and not have to lean on the ESA's pathetic organizational skills.
I mean,
to
let's
do
be
so.
honest. The ESA at this point is pathetic. Like,
Yeah.
so they breach, everyone's information gets breached on their E3 website. They launch their new E3 website, and it's also a problem.
Yeah.
Like, who is running that place? Like, it's mind-boggling. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, if they continue down this road, E3 will go away. If they continue down this path, it will go away.
And further, if they can't build a website that works competently in the year of our Lord 2021, do you think they can lobby effectively in Washington, D.C. for this industry?
As soon as I saw the write-up for that website, what it was supposed to do, I was like, you people are insane. Why would you try to build this insane web portal in 1 year with all these features, one, that people don't need, and two, open up the doors for what happened last year, and three, open up the door for it to be a piece of crap because you're trying to get everything nailed down in a year's time. It's insane.
And four, including features that will be useless next year if everything goes back to normal.
Dude, here's the problem. The ESA needs to get rid of the old boys club that has been running the ESA. Like, I hate to say it, but they need to hire people like us who are experienced enough to know the history of the industry and to be able to function within the ESA, but aren't so old that we're effing clueless. Like, I don't know what's going on there, but you're right. If it continues down this path, the E3 will go away, and the ESA will be disbanded, because that's where it gets all its money. And then we'll have no lobbyists. Then what happens?
You just form another lobby group.
Maybe we should do it, Matt. Maybe we should form our own lobby group. I would honestly not be surprised if we did that if people supported us in the industry. I'm not kidding. I don't run into a whole lot of people other than Michael Pachter who toot the horn of the ESA. I'll just be, can you? Can you think of any?
I'm surprised Pachter doesn't.
Well, he has personal relationships with those guys. And so he knows.
He'd have personal relationships with whatever new organization rose
up. With us.
Yeah.
The no BSA is what we're going to call ours. So anyway, that's PlayStation at E3, as it were, which there is no were because they're not going to be there. It does hurt my heart, Matt, that they're not at E3. It just does. To me, the big three being at E3, that's why I go to E3. The other guys are like the icing on the cake. The big three are the cake. It's a 3-layer cake. Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. And then the third-party stuff is just the icing that goes all around it. Like, it just doesn't feel right. I don't care how many years it happens. It's going to have to happen for 20 years before it doesn't feel right, because that's how many years I went to E3 where they were all there. So it just bums me out. It hurts my soul and look, I can't blame PlayStation because you're right. They have been extremely successful, but then I say to myself, could they be more successful if they were at E3? Like, could the demand be even higher?
Could they be more successful?
Well,
they can't sell and make enough PlayStations to sell to demand.
No, I get that, Matt, but there could be more people thirsty for them than there are now that don't have them, and eventually they're going to satisfy demand. And maybe satisfying demand is dragged out longer if they're at E3 and more people know. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws.
You are grasping at straws. The era is over. E3 is what it was, is not what it is.
Yeah.
And it may limp along for years to come. It may dissolve after time as everyone else learns the same lesson that Sony did. To me, it doesn't hurt my heart. It doesn't really bother me at all, because that era for me ended a long time ago. The bloom came off that rose some while ago, and things change, and part of a journey is also the end of it, and that is sort of where I think we've been seeing a long extended end as we've moved on to the last half. We've seen the last half decade of E3.
When do you think? How much longer do you think E3 lasts, provided there aren't any major overhauls to what the show is?
I don't actually know.
And I mean like major overhauls, not just like let more fans in or whatever.
I mean, I don't know. Like they could keep this going as like a zombie kind of pseudo PAX for another 5-10 years if they wanted to. I'm sure you open the doors of the convention center to people to run in and get free bags or something. I'm sure you can do. There'll
always be an audience for that.
For sure.
Yeah.
But in terms of being kind of and there'll always be a reason to have like an expo where everybody gets together from the industry and meets and makes those deals and stuff, and gets to kind of socialize from around the world. Like that's one of the, I know Actors upset that they didn't do it this year and all in person and stuff. But part of the reason I think they didn't do it this year is because the point of E3 from a high level macro business perspective is everybody from around the world gets to come together in one place and talk to each other face to face and make those deals and shake those hands. And the entire world is not ready to do that yet.
Yeah, I mean, that is an important function of E3. I mean, and that extrapolates onto PlayStation as well, not just everybody else. I mean, that's where deals are made.
Look, Sony does have people there.
That's the funny part. Is like you see them walking around,
but they're not spending $5 million to do that.
Well, they've never spent that much on E3 anyway. It doesn't cost that much.
Some of those booths do.
Yeah, I don't think they're that much.
I know how much some of those spaces cost.
Oh, I do too. We had to price them out at game trailers, and I know how much every one of them costs because they gave us the grid that showed it all. But they're not that much. Like
they are. Some of them are, and not the stuff we were getting, of course.
No, but PlayStation, like that spot was like $1 million for the show. Then you have to pay to build your booth, which is like another 1.5. At the time,
the ESA started trying to get more money out of people as years went on.
Probably why they all left.
That didn't hurt. No,
because even $1 million for that amount of space seems absurd. But
because remember, I mean, that was sort of the weird thing. Was like I believe that the Sony ESA situation was. Two very arrogant organizations kind of mashing into each other. Yeah. You know, like the ESA thought they were completely indispensable and Sony thought that they were completely invincible and, immovable object, irresistible force. And in the end, I think Sony was right.
It probably did win. Yeah.
So
and now you have Keighley like leaving E3. Like I saw he tweeted something was like, first time ever I'm not involved with E3 or something. Like,
yeah.
If you're the ESA,
if Keighley doesn't think it's worth being involved with it, that dude knows the score.
Well, that just means that he doesn't think he can make money off of it anymore, which probably is an indictment on E3.
That's a very important barometer right there. There are few people in this industry who are better at knowing where they can make money on something than Jeff Keighley.
That's true,
and if he thinks it's a lost cause, maybe he changes his mind next year when it's in person again. I don't know.
Well, I think he said that they tried to hardball him on stuff, and he just wasn't having it.
I believe that too, absolutely. Yeah. But Jeff Keighley is not a bad barometer for sort of where this sort of thing's going to break. He knows everyone. He has connections everywhere. He knows where the bodies are buried. And if he gets out, I think that's the
canary in the coal mine.
Very noticeable canary in that coal mine. Absolutely. For sure. Yep. Not to call Jeff a canary. He's not a canary.
Yeah, obviously. But anyway.
He's a bird of prey is what he is.
All right, that's it for Sony at E3, as it were, or the lack thereof of Sony at E3. It still bothers me. It'll take me a while to get over it, I think. But it's time to move on to our E3 2021 predictions. So we have a prediction for each of the big three, and then we have a prediction for either PC or third party. Matt, you're going to make your picks first, and we're going to start with Microsoft. What is your prediction for Microsoft at E3 2021?
I do think we are going to see a Hellblade 2 gameplay premiere. I think they are going to do a fairly significant chunk of time on that game.
What do you anticipate will change from the first Hellblade? Do you think there'll be any big changes, or do you think they're going to kind of stick to their guns on it?
I think they're going to expand the combat system. I think they're going to make it a bigger thing. I think you're going to see more cues taken from God of War. It's already kind of halfway there, but I think you are going to see more emphasis on that. And I think you are going to maybe add a little player input to how Senua evolves as a character over the course of the game.
I do wonder if the concept is a little niche for mass market audiences. I mean, I love it, and I think it's brilliant, and I think we need more games that explore mental health. I just wonder if it's kind of a turnoff to more casual folks.
I don't think so, because in part, because I think you can play that game and not realize that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're not a person who sees themes and
or watches
things
GameFace
like that and stuff, you could easily play that game and just think, oh, it's just crazy. I mean, it doesn't require you to understand what it's trying to say in order to have fun playing it. Also, I've given that game to very casual players who loved it. Who would normally not play a God of War or an action game like that, and they really liked it. Multiple people. So it does, whatever they're doing there does seem to be connect with people.
Yeah.
So I think they could do work. I mean, it's not going to be like maybe like the breakout hit that you could get out of a really good Fable or a really solid Elder Scrolls, but I think it's worth having in their library. And I think you could there's a shot at making it kind of a mid-level breakout hit if you play your cards right.
All right, I actually have two predictions for Microsoft. My first one.
Also, I'd like to see Ninja Theory get some serious success out of what they're doing now, because those guys have been working hard for years and years and years. And
doesn't matter now. They're in Microsoft's warm bosom.
It'd be nice to see Ninja Theory become more of a household word.
I agree. Yeah, they deserve more respect than they've got so far. They've made pretty much every game they've made has been high quality.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a lot with a little in the past as well, and now they can hopefully do even more with a lot. We'll see. I have two predictions for Microsoft. My first one is that we will get both Forza games this holiday season. We will get both Forza Horizon 5 and Forza Motorsport before the end of 2021. I think we kind of talked you through why I think that's more than viable and more than plausible. I also don't see Microsoft being as prudent with its exclusives as some of the other guys, because I honestly feel like Microsoft needs to change some minds. I don't think it can be looking at it like, oh, well, we've put this one out 2 months ago. Like, we can't put this one out now. I think Microsoft just wants to flood the channels and just change minds about buying an Xbox and what it's like to own an Xbox. Like, people need to know it's not going to turn out like that same cycle of Halo, Gears, Forza, Halo, Gears, Forza. I think the best way you can do that is just be like, you know what? We're giving you both our Forza games at the same time, or roughly at the same time. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if one's like September and the other one is November or something like that. But I think
they're both on Game Pass. They're both there when you're ready for them, and like do whatever you want. Yeah. It's like the perception of more than you can play is sort of a new phenomenon for Xbox in the last generation or so. So
like 10 years. Let's be honest. That's really where they're at. And then my final prediction for Microsoft is that Xbox wins E3 handily. I just think we went through all the games with you guys. It has a stellar lineup. Its press conference is probably going to be an hour and a half long. It's still going to have to cut great games from that. So its lineup is amazing.
Assuming they have stuff, everything's ready to show in some form. Yeah, they have the potential right there. Yeah. The bullets are all in the magazine. They just got to be ready to fire them. Yeah,
I think when we are sitting here next Friday doing our Best of E3 awards, I think we're going to be heaping a lot of praise on Xbox. And I think it will, in my opinion, probably win E3 in a landslide. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't hurt that, one of its big competitors may not be there. All right, Nintendo time, Matt. What's your prediction for Nintendo at E3 2021?
We already kind of predicted a bunch of stuff before, but
you didn't talk about this though.
No, my cynical predictions are that they do for the 25th anniversary of whatever is it 30th? Is it 35th anniversary, I guess, of Zelda. We're gonna get they're gonna do a Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD combo bundle. Of the Wii U version, the Wii U HD remasters.
Yep.
They're going to put those together and sell them for $60 and call that your gift for the Zelda anniversary.
It'll be called like the Zelda 35th anniversary bundle or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
They'll come with like a video of the making of stuff, or Koji Kondo talking about the music or some crap.
Will they have done anything to the games, do you think, Matt?
No, they'll just be
straight ports from the Wii U.
They'll just be the Wii U version ported up. Maybe taking advantage of the new stuff in the Super Nintendo Switch, whatever. Which is okay, not bad. That's
fine. Really great. Honestly, if you think about it, if you get Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker all in 1 year, I would have to say that probably is an adequate celebration.
I would definitely rather play Twilight Princess and Wind Waker again than Skyward Sword.
Oh yeah. But I'm just saying, if you get all three of those games this year, that would be an adequate celebration of a franchise like Zelda for a big milestone.
The only downside would be like there's definitely the possibility that they would not want to split the market on Skyward, give you a better option than Skyward Sword. Then they maybe wouldn't want to do that. In which case, but I do think at some point we're going to get this combo. At some point, we're going to get a Switch version combo of the Ocarina and Majora's Mask 3D remakes on the 3DS. I just see those happen. Maybe that would be more next year or the year after, because the anniversary of was it the 25th anniversary of Ocarina is coming up in 2023.
Yep.
So that would be a time to do that, probably.
Yeah.
And then
wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the other half of my cynical prediction is no Metroid.
Yeah.
We won't see Metroid mentioned at all.
Yeah, you're saying no trailer, no mention
no
of
trailer
it, no
for Prime
anything.
4, no secret 2D game from Mercury Steam, no nothing. Maybe
that seems really bold. That's a bold prediction because it's anniversary.
Maybe the Metroid helmet in Animal Crossing, like that could always happen.
Wow, that would really be bad if Nintendo didn't even do anything for Metroid on its anniversary like that.
I agree, but it would also be very in character.
Sadly, you're right, man. It's hard to disagree with that, but man, that just seems.
Or maybe we'll get an HD remaster of Federation Force, like, just a giant middle finger.
Okay, let's see. I actually have two predictions for Nintendo as well. My first one goes directly against Matt's prediction. And my first prediction is, and I think I said this during the Nintendo section, we'll get the first real Metroid Prime 4 trailer at their press conference. Probably seated right in the middle, in between Switch Pro and Breath of the Wild 2, but no release date. They'll show the trailer. We'll actually get to see maybe some in-engine stuff, but they won't share the release date at all because, one, it's Nintendo, and two, it's Retro Studios. And that combo together.
And three, it doesn't have one.
Right.
Like, there's no way they know when this is coming out.
They've literally been working on it for like a year and a half. So at this point, I feel like they've probably figured out what the story's going to be, what the characters are going to be, maybe what a couple of the gameplay hooks are going to be. I feel like the trailer will show that stuff off and then be done with no release date. And then my second prediction for Nintendo, and this pains me to say this, considering my fantasy team, is that Breath of the Wild 2 will not come out this year. I don't think that's a big shocker. However, I think it will be released on March 3rd, 2022, exactly 5 years to the day that the first game was released. And there's just the perfect synergy there. I think the timing's working out for it.
I think that makes it. My only caveat on that is that March 3rd is a Thursday. And that's not usually when Nintendo releases stuff.
Wow, that's interesting that you went and looked that far ahead to see what the actual day of the week was. However, Nintendo has released games on odd days before. It wouldn't be out of the ordinary.
They like to put stuff out on Fridays and Sundays.
Yeah, I mean, they have done odd days before for special things. So
theoretically, if you did a March 4th release, but you released it at midnight Eastern, it would come out on the 3rd here, Pacific time.
Yeah. I just think they're going to try to time the release of it.
Yeah, somewhere in that window makes a lot of sense. Also, like, man, half a decade between those two. Wow.
That's why I drafted it, Matt. I'm like, there's no way in hell it's going to take longer than that. It's on the same engine. It's insane.
I knew it was gonna, but like, it doesn't make it any easier to swallow.
It's crazy, dude. I don't know what they're doing. This game is going to have to be the game of the forever. That's all I got to say. They didn't have to build it from scratch. They had the engine, the open world engine.
I mean, my guess is the reason it took so long is it's a co-op game.
Yeah.
I think you play as Link and Zelda.
That's possible. I'm wondering if anyone's going to be brave enough to predict that it's coming out this year when they're doing their E3 predictions. I am not, even though I drafted the game on my fantasy team. I don't think
there's any chance.
Yeah.
But I think before the end of March next year is not out of the realm of possibility. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Okay, let's move to PlayStation. Matt, what's your PlayStation prediction?
My PlayStation prediction is there is no PlayStation. There is no appearance. Sony does nothing. They run completely silent for all of June.
Okay.
And we see them again probably in August with a state of play.
Okay. My prediction is there's a surprise state of play that airs after everybody else is done.
That's adorable.
I know. It's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
But it does make sense because if they did a state of play after the last press conference happens, they win. They win E3. They show almost anything at that presentation. They win E3. So,
all right. Well, that's sort of telling me that if I do this thing that I don't want to do, I win a pizza with pineapple and anchovies
that you don't like.
I don't want that pizza. So why would I show up?
If they do it, I feel like it would show PlayStation VR 2 and like the first footage of God of War, stuff like huge stuff. And I don't think it's going to be like an hour. It could be just like 15 or 20 minutes, something that they put together. But I don't think there's a zero chance that happens.
I think there is a zero chance of that happening.
Okay.
I
had to come up with something for
Yeah,
PlayStation
I
that
know.
wasn't the exact same thing that you chose. So
I mean, we
that's
could
where I
just,
went.
I mean, the reality is reality, but like also I think doing something like that makes them look weak compared to the others. Yeah. Oh, the others did like a big hour and a half blowout and intended their usual 45-minute direct thing. And there's 15 minutes of this game you might like. It's like, I think Sony.
Or does it show that the power that it has, that it can show a couple things and still win?
No, I mean, there is no official way to win. That's the thing. It's like, I don't think they think of it like that. I think what they think of is like, we can just show this on our own terms whenever we want and not compete with the signal to noise ratio of all the other companies at any time because we're PlayStation and everybody's paying $1,000 for our system we can't make enough of. And we got Ratchet and Clank coming out this week, and go fuck yourselves. Like I really think that's where Sony is. I think Sony is in the height of arrogant Sony realm, and but as I've said before, the difference between arrogance and confidence is being able to deliver.
Yeah.
And so far, Sony has been able to deliver.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but I think Sony is just going to continue their streak of saying we don't need E3, and we're going to prove it by just shutting up and letting everybody else do their thing.
Okay. And then our final predictions. This is, you could choose whether you wanted to cover a third-party publisher or something related to PC. Matt, what is your last prediction for E3 2021?
Well, to be fair, I made this prediction when I thought that they were doing this next week and not a month and a half from now. But I do think EA will show a new Star Wars game.
Okay.
Besides the Hunters thing that we know about.
Yeah, that's a Switch exclusive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also like rumors that Ubisoft is working on an open world Star Wars game from the Division team.
Yes, the word is there's some kind of action RPGs, like basically Assassin's Creed with a lightsaber kind of thing going on.
That the Division
Which
team
I would be fine with. Like you can go ahead and take my money for that right now.
Yeah.
Because they're supposedly spreading out the Lucasfilm is changing their strategy. So like they're going to contract out different devs and publishers for what they think are appropriate for each project, which is exactly what LucasArts used to do.
Yeah.
And it worked fine.
Yeah, it worked great.
So yeah, but I do think EA is going to have a new, maybe Fallen Order 2, like we know that's in there somewhere. Maybe a more full-fledged Squadrons, because that actually did pretty well for them.
Yeah.
Maybe Battlefront again.
Yeah, Battlefront 3. That to me seems like most likely.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to admit it, but the timing of it, how much easier they are to develop than something like a Fallen Order.
It's been about the right amount of time.
Yeah. And it sold very well. They've made a gob of money on that game. So why would you stop making it?
Even with all the controversy over 2, it still sold. It didn't sell Battlefront 1 numbers, but Battlefront 1 was part of that frenzy around the return of Star Wars with Force Awakens that I don't think anything could replicate. Like,
I mean, let's be honest, Matt. Most of EA's games don't sell that well.
No, 15 million copies is ridiculous for anything from EA. But the idea that Battlefront would sell that much, I mean, that was purely the wave of hype from Star Wars coming back.
Timing.
And you're never going to replicate that again.
Like they say, timing is everything in life.
Yep.
Okay, my final prediction for E3 2021 is I do think that we're going to see Street Fighter 6 for the first time. I just can't understand how it would not be ready to show at this point. Capcom doesn't have much else to show. When was Street Fighter 5? Was it 6 years ago now?
I want to say that was 2016.
Yeah, so it's coming up on 5 years, I guess. I mean, damn, dude. Like, you gotta get another fighting game out. It is still, like it or not, the best-selling, most popular fighting franchise on the planet.
Yeah, February 2016, so it's a little over 5 years old.
A little over 5 years. Like, you gotta do it. And look, there's been so many reports about, the alphas and the betas of this. People playing it, have been playing it for quite a while. Now, it does seem like Ono-san may have lost his job over Street Fighter 6. That's all conjecture on my part. I'm not reporting it as fact. It seems that way. We get rumors that the people who are testing Street Fighter 6 don't like it that much, and then half a year later we find out that Ono-san is out. So that's kind of the wild card. Like, how much are they reworking it after he left? Do they feel like it needs to be completely reworked? I mean, that's a big X factor. But it's time. People are ready to see it. Capcom should be ready to show it. So that is my big...
I just feel like if they're going to show Street Fighter 6, they would probably reveal the final character from 5 before they do that.
Well, they probably will at the same time.
They could do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they save stuff like that for like something like Evo, but who knows if Evo's even going to happen?
Yeah, this year, is it happening?
I don't know. I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, I saw Sony announce something
about it
now,
so I don't know.
Sony's putting money into it. Like there was a story last week, I think, that kind of showed that Sony was actually living up to its word and doing some different stuff with it. But I'm not sure if it's going to happen this year. Someone in chat.
I mean, I think Evo. I think there'd be an online one. You know, like because they don't need to cancel completely like last year because they had the scandal going. But if they do like a full online Evo, I think that is where you premiere Street Fighter 6.
It would make sense. Kind of. I still think E3 is a bigger stage than Evo, but you're reaching the exact people you want to reach.
E3 is a bigger stage than Evo in terms of video games, but it is not a bigger stage in terms of fighting games.
Yeah, I mean, you're reaching the core audience at Evo, but Street Fighter to me is bigger than the core audience. Like Guilty Gear Strive, core audience. Street Fighter 6.
But Street Fighter 6 being more than a year and a half out, I would say, would be, you don't need to talk to anybody but the core audience yet. Also, don't underestimate how much fighting game people don't care about other video games. Yeah. Like a huge chunk of people who play fighting games don't play other video games.
Yeah, I know, because you have to only play that genre to be good enough at it.
But I mean, to the point that I'm talking about, I know people who play fighting games professionally who do not call themselves gamers.
Oh.
Because they just play fighting games. Like they don't consider themselves to be into video games. They like fighting games.
Interesting.
And that's just how it is. So presenting that at Evo makes a lot more sense because that's where your audience is. Yep. I mean, Capcom, I got a thing to do. They might, reveal the last character for 5 at E3. That might make sense. Just to sort of close that out.
Seems pretty small for E3, but we'll see. I have faith.
Yeah, but if you need something to fill 5 minutes in your little presentation,
and they might.
They might.
I mean, we already went through Capcom stuff. It's not exactly overflowing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like it's one more thing to add a bullet point on your presentation.
Yep. So there you go, people. That's our preview of E3 2021. I think, Matt, you thought I wasn't going to get it done in time, but I did. I got it wrapped up just in the nick of time. We do have time to take a few questions from you guys. If you have them, you can ask us about our coverage, anything you're excited about at E3. Just make sure you go at Sifted Games in the chat so we can find it in the chat. Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime. Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime. Ed H420, thank you for Twitch Prime. Who else do we got here at the end? Hype Train's at level 3. Is JM Rain in the house? I bet he is. Oh, there he is. Thank you, JM Rain, for gifting subs to people. That's awesome, man. All right, let's see if we got some questions here. ETH Demon, how you doing, bro? There are rumors going around of another Microsoft acquisition being revealed at E3. If so, who? One guess from each of you. What do you think, Matt?
I don't know.
No clue? No guess? No wishful thinking? Any studios that you would like to see Microsoft acquire?
I mean, I'm not super hyped to see anybody absorbed into the amoeba of Microsoft at this point. I don't know.
Well,
I'm running through this. I don't know. I can't think of anyone that I would like. Obsidian would still be sort of my go-to pick, but that already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I look for studios that will fill a hole that Microsoft may have. And so, to me, Don't Nod comes to mind. Their narrative-driven stuff, adventure-style stuff. And I'll just be honest with you right now. I think Housemarque, I think everybody's going to want Housemarque. I think
that could be.
There's going to be a bidding war for Housemarque.
Don't Nod has intentionally fended off other offers to be purchased. They do not want to sell.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be them.
Do you know what one company is that could write a check big enough to make them reconsider? It's Microsoft.
I don't think it could.
Yeah.
I don't think
everyone has a price. There's a certain point where it becomes absurd and you'd be a moron to not sell.
Yeah, but there's also a point where it becomes absurd and you'd be a moron to offer that much money for them.
Hey, Microsoft can afford to throw that money around, though, Matt. It has
but why would you do that?
Incomprehensible money. It just does.
Yeah, but one of the reasons it has incomprehensible money is it doesn't do shit like that.
Nah, maybe.
Don't Nod doesn't want to sell because they want to continue telling the stories they do without interference from a corporate entity, and I don't think you could convince them otherwise right now. Maybe in a few years when things don't sell as well as they think they might, if that happens. But for now, I don't think Don't Nod's on the table.
Tiny 2K,
Housemarque is a good question.
How everyone's going to want to buy Housemarque, and they should. Yeah. They should.
Sony should really be in front of the line for that one.
They should have listened to us like 3 years ago when we were on Housemarque's jock and telling people like, this is a great studio you should keep an eye on.
Yeah, Nex Machina should have been enough for anybody, really.
Absolutely. Let's see. Lots of questions. Tiny 2K, thank you for all the Tier 1 subs that you're giving out to our viewers. It's awesome. Other questions. Let's see. El Guapo 3385. Will we hear anything about Beyond Good and Evil 2 at E3? We talked about that at length earlier in the show. You must have got in the stream a little late. Crib Notes version, maybe. I think if you go between the two of us, Matt, it probably is a maybe. If you share our two opinions and squeeze them down into one opinion.
I think yours is more like maybe, and mine's more like maybe.
I think that's accurate. Yakov 226. What about Silent Hill? Do you think we will see Konami franchises at any of the streams?
No.
Oy. Yeah. Probably not.
Unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
The big one for me I keep coming back to Castlevania because they've got that successful Netflix show. I don't like it very much, but it's done very well for them. Mm-hmm. And they haven't even tried to cash in on that. They haven't tried to capitalize on it. It's really sad.
It doesn't seem to care. Konami just does not seem to care anymore. No. I do believe there's a Silent Hill game coming though. So.
I mean, Sony. There's a lot of rumors around Sony doing something for Silent Hill, but obviously that doesn't help us at E3.
Yeah. But I do think one's coming. Another question, I think maybe someone will ask it eventually, but I'm just going to bring it up. Kojima. Are we going to see Kojima's game at E3? I would say
maybe
no.
That's the acquisition.
Possible. Because the rumors are that Kojima, its next game is going to be an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
And if there's also a rumor that Microsoft may be acquiring a studio, and Microsoft has already demonstrated to Kojima that, hey, your ideas are kind of crazy, but we're okay with that. Whereas PlayStation kind of showed it really wasn't okay with that. So that's possible.
And if I'm Kojima, I would certainly like to be in a nice financially stable, place with all these Microsoft dollars around me.
Yeah, that will let you practice your art the way you want to practice it with no compromise. And I do feel like Phil Spencer would allow that to happen. So.
Yeah, and if you ever really, really did feel like returning to one of his old franchises through Konami, Microsoft has the money and the clout to make that happen.
Yep, absolutely.
I wouldn't consider that a horrible move on his part if he wanted to do that.
Look, and back to your question, Yakov, about Silent Hill. Like, I don't think there's a zero chance that we see it. Like, I think there is a chance that it does show up. If it does show up, my guess is it shows up in the Xbox press conference. I don't know where else you can slot it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, the so many of the rumors have surrounded Sony doing it, though.
Right.
But, who knows?
But like I said, if it shows up at E3, it's going to be a Microsoft presser.
Yeah, it would have to be one of those two throwing money at
PlayStation's not going to be there.
Konami.
Or maybe that's part of the late state of play, Kyle. It's God of War, PlayStation VR 2, and Silent Hill. That would bring the house down. Let's be honest.
I mean, Silent Hill.
They would win E3 if that happened.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. What if it had PT in it? If the new Silent Hill also had PT?
Yeah.
We're dreaming now. We're going crazy.
Takes a little more than a B-list horror game that hasn't had a good entry since the early 2000s to really win E3, I think. But
yeah, typically. Okay, let's see if we got any more. El Guapo 3385 again, a company that has to scoop up Blue Point Games. The company has proven that itself again and again with the amazing remakes. Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like that's Sony though. I feel like that's Sony's
it's custom made for Sony to snatch them up.
Yeah, that's Sony's battle to win or lose.
You know who would be smart to snatch them up though? Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly once they get the Switch to 4K. There's going to be a lot of porting going on of old games up to the 4K standard or whatever. That's exactly the studio that you would want doing that stuff. But Nintendo will never do it. It just isn't going to happen.
Also, I do think Blue Point would be wasted on that.
Yeah.
Like, they're too talented to do that. Like, you want them doing some ground-up stuff, too.
Yep. Mega Drive guy, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. Appreciate it. Let's see, we'll take one more. Ed H420. Why do Shane and Matt seem to have such different experiences playing the same game?
Because we're different people.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would ask us that. I think you just assume that. Because we're completely different people. We're different human beings, different tastes, different everything. Brought up differently. Matt likes different music than I do. I like sports. Matt doesn't give a crap about sport. We're different human beings. And different human beings like different
parts
things.
of the country.
Yeah.
Different.
I mean, if that's the case.
He was a skater boy. I said, see you later, boy.
Right,
It's just everything.
It's all different. But that's the way everybody is. Like, if that's the case, why wouldn't every show ever just have one person on it? And for that matter, why wouldn't there just be one person that hosts every show in the world?
Yeah.
If everybody thinks the same thing, you understand where we're coming from?
And whoops, it's a dystopia.
Yeah. All right. That's it for GameFace 259 and our massive E3 2021 preview. Just gigantic. Thanks to everybody on the stream. Thanks to everyone for the Twitch Prime, for all the bits from JM Rain and Tiny2K, for all the subs that they've given to you, our audience on the stream. Again, more than enough reason to show up live for the show every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. Just another reminder that Sifted is supported 100% by donations and pledges from our patrons at patreon.com/Sifted. If you're listening to this show or watching this show anywhere else on the internet and you'd like to support us, please head there. Another reminder, our annual E3 t-shirt sale just kicked off. The prices are already adjusted on the store. Our newest designs, 40% off. It will run all the way through E3. In fact, we'll probably turn the sale off when I get back from doing our Best of E3 episode next Friday. So you have about a week and a half or 10 days to get the shirts at 40% off. I think we still have most sizes. There's a couple where there's like one left. So if you are interested in getting the shirts at a discount, you might want to go there and jump on that ASAP. Again, we'll see you guys on Saturday for the first live stream of E3 coverage, and then we'll be back in here pretty much every day for several days straight. And then, like I said, next Friday, our Best of E3 2021 awards. I think that's it for the housekeeping. Look for more pre-E3 coverage coming up. Like I said, we're going to do a top 10 most anticipated games. We're going to do a big predictions article from Vincent for E3, and Pactor also has a predictions episode coming on Friday, so look out for that. We're going to try to get some Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart coverage out for you guys. As you can see, it's insane, but it's this time of year. It's always this way. I'm used to it. I'm ready for it, and I hope that you guys are too. If you want to find me on Twitter, I am at Dinfire. Matt is at MKyle. And if you are one of those people who can't afford to support us at Patreon or with Twitch Prime or at sifted.net/donate, and you want to do something for us, you can follow us at Sifted Games. You can retweet all our stuff. That's a help. That's value to us. It matters. You can also go and review GameFace on your favorite podcast service and leave us a review. That makes a huge difference. There's a lot of stuff you can do without giving us money that can make a meaningful difference for us and our business. So anyway, thanks again to everybody who was on the stream. Thanks for all the bits. Thanks for the Twitch Prime. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. We'll see you guys on Saturday for E3 2021. GameFace is up and out.